Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the semifinals of the 2021 Women's Speed Chess Championship hosted by chess.com and FIDE. Katie, we are about to witness the start of the 5+1 Blitz segment. Any predictions when it comes to openings?
Openings, I think we're gonna see a lot of e4 moves today, because Ho Yifan plays both d4 and d4, and Lei Tingli also plays both lines. And I also expect some sort of switch of the openings after some time. And what do you think? Do you think one of these girls in the favorite in this time segment?
I think for the first ones, for the 5+1, especially, I would say Yifan, in my opinion, is the favorite. A bullet will be crazy. It might be the other way around because Lei Tinglie is a more active player. So I think there for the speed of bullet chess being constantly in active competition or training helps a lot. And Yifan herself said that she doesn't have much time for training now with her full-time profession. But the game has just started. And as you predicted, Kete, it's an E4 opening.
Yeah, here we have E4 opening. I'm not a E4 player, Anas. That's why I just know a couple of like main lines, and I could not really recall the names of the lines. This is Rui Lopez.
Oh, you know it very well. I will complement each other correctly because you're a D4 player mainly. I'm an E4 player. So we have it all together.
Yeah, it could be really good if they switch at some point from E4 to D4. So I would also, at least I would know the names of the openings.
So it's Yifan with the white pieces in the first game, and we have the Berlin defense on the board at the Champions Tour. This is a very popular opening, and so we see it here too at the Women's Speed Chess Championship. The end game line, this position has been seen at so many super tournaments. It is a better pawn structure for white, but black does have the pair of bishops, and it's this constant battle of will the bishops prevail, or is it about the pawn structure and white being able to create even a pass pawn, this 4 versus 3 on the king side.
Yeah, I've seen these games a lot lately. Somehow players really like to play without the queens. That's sort of my style too. But then, like when queens are off the board, you might think that, oh, that's gonna be so draw equal game, but no, it's not gonna be that easily. They're going to play. There are some ideas here, and this game is way far to be a draw.
Absolutely. These positions can be very rich. The strategic battle, again, between the minor pieces, and also will white manage to get the upper hand, having more space and more active pieces. For now, black still needs to complete the development of the queen side as well. And we need to always remind ourselves that castling is not possible for black because of that capture on d8 at the start.
Yeah. Well, you can trick your opponent in over the board chess, but online chess.
Has it ever happened to you that you accidentally castled in an over the board game?
It happened to a very, very close friend of mine, and she had no idea about that. She played 90 moves or something. She won the game, and some of our friends were writing to me and asking like, why I cannot see the move after the game after 15 move. I was like, I have no idea. And then she said, I came in the room. I wanted to analyze my game, and computer doesn't allow me to castle. And it's like, what the hell? And I started to analyze it more accurately. And then it turns that she played rook b1 and then rook a1 and then long castled.
Oh.
So that's why also broadcast stopped. And that's why computer didn't allow her to castle.
At least she won her game, even if it wasn't exactly by the actual rules of chess. If no player realizes, if neither her nor her opponent was aware, the game can continue in over-the-board tournaments, not in online chess. You are right that in online games, this cannot happen. The system doesn't let you make an illegal move. We now have seen a trade on e6, which means that black no longer has a pair of bishops. And I think it's getting more and more comfortable for Yifan to play this position position, with black still having a worse pawn structure. Now this e6 pawn 2 has become a weakness. The g5 square itself and g6 squares are weak too. And she's just improving her position little by little. I like g3 to make sure that there will be nothing going on the king side. She can push after h4, g4 if she wants to, and she might bring the king to g2 in the future.
Exactly. I like this G3 move too. It's like she doesn't have to hurry up and the development of the queen side, because I think she is looking still for the perfect square for this bishop. There is one perfect square here on G5 to eliminate the dark square bishop, and then knight can comfortably come on E4 and try to also control queen side. Or what do you think? Where else How Yifan thinks to develop this bishop?
I like your suggestion with bishop g5. The square for sure is one of the main ones to go to. And I also like the fact that she's very patient. She pushes a4 to stop any expansion from black. Black cannot gain further space on the queen side. So she pushes a4 to stop the a5 pawn. And that also means that she is fixing the pawn structure of black on the dark squares.
Yeah, I like this. I like her style. She's dominating on the full board. It's not only she chooses the side or center. She tries to dominate over the board and to avoid any counterplay from the opponent, and that's quite annoying style of the chess players, because you never know, like they never allow you to choose some plan or to have some ideas, because they control the board, and position actually allows her to do so.
Very important what you highlighted, that this is a long-term positional advantage that Yifan has, and she is restricting the options of her opportunity. So there's not much of a chance for counterplay. Now after c4, black needs to decide whether to trade on d1. There weren't too many options for the rook where to go. And this is a beautiful position where all the white pieces are better than their counterparts. And the king still needs to make it some time to f7 to bring the rook into the game, but then there's always rook to d7, so it's a bit troublesome how to activate the black rook.
Exactly. When she played bishop h4 f4 here, I was like, this bishop is really good bishop here, just to stuck between its pawns. But look at this, she keeps also the opponent's bishop on the board, so there is no spot for the king to come on e7. And
Very
that
true.
stops rook to come to the center. So also rook is sort of locked on h8.
Yeah, both the e7 square and even the free f7 square is not a good option for the king because of rook to d7. Now the question will be, of course, is how can white make further progress? Black's position is really restricted, but it's solid. There is no clear target that white can attack. The e6 pawn seems to be the most vulnerable, but if knight g5, then black can consider whether to trade the bishop for that knight. And I think it would be actually a good deal for black, because you get rid of one of the minor pieces, gives you a bit more room to breathe, and the e6 pawn will not be hanging anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that, even if it costs black a pawn. But in the rook endgame, she might have more chances to play for a draw. And yeah, this is I'm sure we all like here white's position, and also maybe the bar here is it's not that dramatic, but it's just so comfortable to play here with white and so uncomfortable to play with black.
Indeed, Yifan decided to push g4, so she went for a very concrete forcing line, which allowed the trade of knights on h4. But even like this, that rook has the h5, the black rook, but there's no entry squares. It cannot go to any of the squares in white's camp. So even though optically it's an open file, it's not as useful as one would hope for.
Absolutely. And what can be the plan here for white to get something out of this position, because there are not much of the pieces on the board.
It's not an easy one. You are right. It is Yifan who tries to go for a king maneuver to bring the king toward the center, but this does allow rook to h3. I wonder if she'll go back to g2 to push the rook away, or will she continue with the king path? But then the rook of black will be active on h3.
Yes, and in case if white tries to come back on g2 and then to trade the rooks and to play bishop endgame, we see all these pawns are, oh, she's going for that,
She's
are
going for the
blocked.
bishop endgame. You predicted it correctly, Katie. It is better, the endgame, I think, even if the bar is now saying 0-0, I think white still has some chances because of the structure, that the pawns of black on the queen side are all on dark squares. But with precise defense, I think there will be no way of getting into black's camp.
I agree with that. My idea might be to centralize the king, then try to push f5 up to f5 to trade the pawns and to create the pass pawn over there, and then to hope to get into the queen side. But I'm sure there are several ways to stop this idea.
Yeah, I'm sure that Yifan will try, but it's not an easy one. Good thing for white's position, you can try forever. You can go back and forth, do this, do that. And now g5, for instance, by Tingjie is a committal decision. She wants to make sure that there's no breakthrough, but f4 is always a question, and that creates a g pass pawn. So I think she evaluated it correctly, that even though white has a pass pawn, the king on g6 and the bishop guarding the g5 square will be enough. But this is a position that she had to calculate and also just make sure that there's no way through. The e6 pawn is a key piece to not let white get through from e4 to d5.
Yeah, that was the weakness of this game, but somehow it became a soldier which controls f5 and d5, very important square.
I just put the poke face on because I was thinking Yifan has made quite some progress by getting the bishop all the way to f6. So the question will be, can she make it to e4 with the king to push the f4 bishop away, guard the e5 pawn, and then she will have bishop to d8.
Oh wow. Oh wow. That is painful. That is painful for black.
Yeah, I don't see a way to stop it. I think Lei Tingqie was defending very well, but she may have gone wrong a few moves ago. We could bring the position back after the game is over, but the time situation, both players below 20 seconds, means that we shouldn't really go and analyze different positions. King and pawn endgame with the G pass pawn, and black has doubled C pawns. It's a virtual pawn up that I think is winning here. It's decisive winning position.
I think it's winning too. White will just push the pawn as far as black allows, and then f6 square is the important square, and that's where white will start to collect the pawns. So that's why here black decided for some counterplay, but queen is superior in this position. 5 pawns are not that strong against the queen.
It is. Yifan wins the first game. Lei Tingqie was defending so well for so long, but it was a tough position to hold forever and ever. Eventually, she made a mistake when they were both very low on time, and Yifan won the bishop endgame. Then in the king and pawn game, it was a very instructive position with Zugzwang incoming, so black couldn't keep the king on g6 forever.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the position that is worth to study, because we had very interesting same color and bishop endgame, and then pawn endgame, and I think it was very instructive game.
It was a really instructive endgame indeed, and this too is an instructive position for a different reason. It's a theoretical opening, very theoretical position of the Sicilian, the Scheveningen variation, and we see Yifan taking some time here to play knight c6.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that of her skills. There's no question that she has amazing skills, but playing for so long, right? Several years already. She still remembers all the lines. ultimate
Yeah, she's
alliance.
incredible. She also competed in the most recent and still ongoing Champions Tour event, which is not an easy field to take on when the world champion and the rest of the crew are your opponents. So
Yeah.
kudos to Yifan to manage to compete at such strong events, even if nowadays she has a full-time job at the university and doesn't have much time for training.
Yeah, exactly. We were wondering what is her subject, what is her position at the university. We wanted to ask. Any idea that anything you know maybe about it?
I haven't heard of it exactly, but maybe our viewers know she studied at Oxford. That was the last time I met her. She came to see the World Chess Championship match in London. Judith and I were the host, and then we took a selfie, the three of us, when she came to see the match between Magnus and Fabiano.
Yeah, nice. That's nice.
She's taking her time, but also letting Jess started to spend a bit longer on these moves, so the time situation is balanced. Again, these first games for the first hour, we still have an hour of this first segment, is 5 minutes with 1 second increment. Welcome to all of you just joining. I know it's early for many of you, especially if you are located. If you're based in the United States, for some of you, it might be extremely early, especially on the West Coast. So thank you for joining us both on YouTube and Twitch. This is the semifinals of the Women's Beach Chess Championship, Hu Yifan versus Le Tingjie, and only one of these amazing ladies can make it to the final.
Absolutely. I was checking the time in China because I really want to know what time situation is there. And for the moment, it's like 20 minutes before 8 p.m. So it's quite late. It's quite late for some people, for myself. But yeah, it's absolutely individual.
Definitely, time zones are a confusing thing, but chess hopefully is a bit easier when it comes to at least following these games. I feel like backseating during games of grandmasters is a lot easier than actually coming up with the moves. Of course, we have the help of the evaluation bar. Yeah, we have the help of our viewers. So thank you so much again to all of you for joining our show, for participating in the broadcast. And I think it was a good suggestion by many of you that it's time for predictions for our viewers too. I would like to encourage all of you on YouTube and Twitch to let us know, who do you think will qualify? This is a knockout system. We are in the semifinals. So either Hu Yifan or Le Tingjie will need to say goodbye to the event today. What is your prediction, folks? Let us know.
Yeah. One of these players will say goodbye, but with a very heavy purse full with money. So,
Indeed, we have a prize fund of $58,000, but that purse can be even heavier if they qualify and play for the first place, which is $20,000.
$20,000. What would you buy, Anna? $20,000. How many chocolate bars would
That's
you
many,
would you
many chocolate
buy?
bars. Getting now that you're saying it that way, it's so many chocolate bars. Maybe I would have chocolate bars for the rest of my life, and my children, grandchildren could have chocolates too.
Oh, chocolate bank. Chocolate bank. You're gonna open chocolate bank.
I like the suggestion. I might consider this business project, Katie. Thank you.
All this chocolate, then you can, open up when you have some grandmasters coming. How you find coming at your home and you can open up and like, oh, this chocolate is from 2021.
Oh, like with wine, and the
Yes.
older it gets, maybe the more valuable. That's a good idea. I need to look it
Yeah.
up, although chocolate might expire sooner than wine.
Or
Yeah, I
beaten by
guess I
Anna.
need to make some research on this. In terms of the position, we have opposite side castling, which is so exciting always, Ketty. We're going to see white trying to attack on the king side. The pawns are already on the fourth rank, ready to launch to the fifth and sixth rank soon, I believe. And black has a semi-open c file as usual in the Sicilian. Maybe two, she'll be able to push a5 and b4 at some point. Yifan here with the black pieces, or knight b6, knight c4 is another typical maneuver.
Exactly. And we have to point out also this bishop, which is directly attacks on g7. We might see some sacrifices over there if white managed to bring more forces on the king side. Meanwhile, bishop c6, I think she is trying to prepare b4, maybe. Like,
Yeah, it could be to put some help, support the b5 pawn, and then a5 b4 is possible, or rook b8 b4. So in both cases, to try to push this pawn to b4, either with a combination of the a pawn or the rook coming to b8. I like this idea for black, but also white's attack can be very fast. If white pushes g5, and then h4, h5, h6, or g6 would
yeah.
be a thematical pawn break. We shall see who's going to be faster, because it does take quite some time to push the pawns all the way to the 6th rank.
Exactly. I played these kind of positions myself with opposite side castling, and it is every tempo here matters, and you have to find the correct plan, because there are several plans for both players, like which pawn to push first, this or this, or how to sacrifice. There are some sacrifices too. This kind of typical sacrifice, 95. Maybe it's even working here. It takes the bishop is hanging, bishop is hanging. She has to consider this knight d5 move as well. And black has, as you mentioned, many plans to push b pawn, or just to get
It's exactly what you said. We mentioned rook bit, you mentioned 95. We are doing great so far with the prediction. I don't know if it's good or bad for the players that they follow our moves.
I don't
Maybe
know,
bad.
but we're good
Maybe
at
bad.
predictions. Yes, we're good at predictions, at least.
It was taken with the bishop because of knight d5. Well, you explained that if pawn was going to capture on d5, then after pawn takes d5, both bishops were going to be hanging. So white wins the piece back. Instead, we see bishop takes d5 and e5. So now white has a passed pawn on d5, but it's this situation where the d6 square is well protected, so it's not going to be that simple to push it. Plus, now the bishop needs to leave the long diagonal. Bishop c3 was still an option, but I felt like maybe b4 then will be even stronger for black.
Yeah, black is trying here to simplify a little bit the position, because white has this powerful bishops on the board, and if white starts the pawn attack h4 h5, that's going to be really hard to play against two bishops. And now here it seems like black is the first who starts the attack.
It does seem like, because the b5 is opening up too, so semi-open c5 black already had, and now the b5 too is ready for black's heavy pieces. I think Yifan is considering whether to take on b4 with the bishop or the rook, or is there a third alternative? I was assuming she was going to take back immediately, but she took a moment to think. Bishop takes b4, very natural, and now she can bring the other rook to c8. There's a b5 pin, so bishop a3 or bishop c3 are possible too.
Yeah. This can be an idea here of black and then sacrifice on b2. That's can be really a powerful idea here. What is white doing here? If black captures back with a bishop, then queen comes on d3, and we have two pieces on d file. Black can still guard d6 bishop with rook b6, but white has bishop on a3.
Yeah, this is suddenly very chaotic with the forcing line, while sacrificing a pawn for the initiative. And I think that's what she's calculating indeed. What you mentioned, queen d3, to put pressure on the minor pieces on the d5, rook b6, bishop b3. Maybe then it's time for black to place either the bishop, well, I guess the knight. No, it has to be knight first, knight to c5, to keep the pieces on the board.
Yeah, I thought that e4 was there some sneaky move, but that was not working. So here we have, I think black got really good position. Black got what she wanted here. The full concentration right now is on the queen side, and there will be some sacrifices on b3 as well.
I think so. I think it's sacrifice time. Knight takes b3 or rook takes b3. Both of them were very appealing. Yifan is up when it comes to material. She is sacrificing the knight, but it feels like it's just a temporary sacrifice. She's giving an intermediate check, not taking the queen on c7 just yet. Now I think it's time, and she's up 2 pawns with very active pieces. I think the only cool thing for white that gives some hope is that they're opposite colored bishops. But with rooks on the board, this position is still very much about the situation of the white king. And now the a pass pawn is running too. time is a factor, of course, in speed chess that matters a lot, and Yifan has less time, so she just needs to hurry up with this 1 second increment to not run out of time.
Exactly, and White here tries to find some counterplay, and especially to find some moves which attacks the opponent. So how Yifan has to spend more time to find the solution, how to defend. Here we have open G file. Rook will come here on the 7th rank, and we'll try to make some checks. Good thing for Black is that these pawns are not very close to each other. So in longer perspective, in the bishop endgame, this position will be winning for Black. Mm-hmm. But when we have pair of rooks on the board, it's so hard to predict that this is gonna go to the bishop endgame and will not end in a checkmate.
Oh, Katie, now it could be checkmate, because if king e4 then rook b4 check wins the game. You can push c4, you can play rook d4, but it was gonna be checkmate. Mm-hmm. So I think White had to give up the rook for the bishop, but it was already a lost position. Lei Tingqie resigns, and it's a 2-point lead for Yifan. Can Lei Tingqie turn the tables? We see again a Berlin defense the endgame line.
Yeah, we have the same position. Let's see what they will change here. But I think we're gonna have some turns in here, because this is such a long day, right? At some point, how Yifan might feel a little bit tired, and also Lei Tingqie, being an active player, playing a lot of chess. Might give her some advantage in blitz and bullet segment.
I agree with you that being an active chess player means that perhaps going into the second, third hour of the match, these super I was going to say super speeches. It's super speeches, I guess, the bullet one speeches and super extra speeches. It requires a lot of effort for an extended period of time. All these matches are minimum 3 hours on average. If there's a tiebreaker, it can be even longer. So you're right. It will matter that Lei Tingqie is the more active player. It could be her advantage at a later stage of the match, but she definitely needs to, of course, easier said than done, try to score before the difference in the match, the advantage of Yifan, will be too much.
Yeah, and to be honest, Anna, looking 2 matches of Ho Yifan and commentating that 2 matches, this is not something new. She has some advantage at 5+1 segment, and always the question is like, what if it's the opposite? Like we start with 1+1, then blitz, and then we have 3+1, and then we have 5+1. So like when you have some advantage at the beginning, like even 2 points or 3 points, this advantage, you feel already that you are the winner. But and in the bullet, you can allow yourself to lose some games or make some draws. But what happens if it's the opposite?
That's an interesting question. Tricky. What if it would be the opposite order? I like, from the viewer perspective, obviously as a spectator, that we constantly are going toward the shorter time control. So the very last phase is the fastest, most high speed and action packed part of the show. And in bullet chess too, even if a player goes into the bullet portion being 3 or 4 points down on the match score, I think it's still possible to make a comeback in bullet, because you can play so many games in 25 minutes of bullet chess.
Absolutely. So what's happening in here? I saw that it was Ho Yifan who changed here, and instead of G3, oh no, it was Lei Tingqie. She decided to play H6. Earlier it was H5, right?
We have a bit of a different version of the same Berlin endgame. The overall strategy is the usual one. Again, it is a pair of bishops for Black fighting against more space and better pawn structure for White. It has changed the structure to a big extent. The fact that knight d5 was played and the trade happened on d5, so Black no longer had doubled pawns, but it meant that after e6, which is a pawn sacrificed by Yifan earlier, the c7 pawn was taken. A very interesting and not that typical Berlin position anymore. I think now it looks more like a French defense because of the pawn structure and the e5 square, but still a very rich position strategically.
If you just came here at this point, we would not say that that position we got from Berlin.
Very true.
So this is the current position. Lei Tingli knows how to use h file for her rooks. Now she's trying to double the rooks probably, and just to have these bishops here. If white allows, then she will of course get on this second rank.
It's a very smart move, and the move order matters too. Obviously, this e5 bishop is guarding the h2 square, but she will only take on e5 and she's ready to go to h2 after doubling her rook. So she's in no hurry taking. And if white takes on f6, I think she will take back with the pawn to strengthen the structure in the center. The e5 square 2 will no longer be a weakness.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then he can start to roll the pawns and activate a little bit of this bishop. This bishop is not the happiest piece on the board.
That's a French bishop. That is a very sad French bishop.
Waiting for his turn to shine.
Let's see what Yifan will come up with, because she's spending quite some time. She's going down to 2 minutes. Again, the time control for these games is 5 minutes with 1 second increment. So that 1 second increment is not that much to count on. She plays bishop to f4. Our evaluation bar didn't like that much the idea, but it wasn't an easy position to improve. She could have perhaps brought the rook to e2 or e3 to also try to double on the e5, but it's messy when you know that black will double on the h5 and you might need your rook on h1 to trade those rooks.
I thought that the bar dropped because bishop d4, c takes d4, and rook c2 check.
Oh, that could be the reason, Kathy. I think you are right. That even though black was focusing on the h file after bishop f4, it was possible to use the c file. Very nice.
Yeah. At this position, black can try, and black can push e5, bishop takes, rook takes, and then still, come on second rank and be very annoying.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I love the info sheet behind the rest of the scene that you can see. It's just above Kathy's head. And it's a fun fact. I thought when I researched these two ladies, I was expecting finding many, many games. They are both from China. They might have played in the Chinese League, Chinese Championship, also international tournaments. They never faced each other at over-the-board events. Lei Tingjie is, I believe, 3 years younger than Yifan, and still, it's just so fascinating that they never ever played.
Anna. I was so desperate to find the games. I tried in ChessBase, I tried in the internet, everywhere. It's like, come on.
Me too. I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought, is something wrong with my database? And then I found one game, and that one game is from December's Women's Summit organized by chess.com. Online event, Rapid Chess. I believe that the one game they played against each other, Yifan won the Women's Summit, but Lei Tingjie won the game. So that's an interesting one, that Lei Tingjie had the black pieces. It was a very long end game, and she managed to win, but Yifan won the tournament.
Yeah, okay, that makes actually sense, because Yifan was not playing in the national team, as I remember. Even though she was still active player, she was playing and competing top grandmasters, but not competing in the women's tournament, as I remember.
Yeah, like, and also Olympiad, she wouldn't compete at the Chinese women's championship. She competed in the overall championship of China.
Yeah, that might be a reason. Another reason might be that Lei Tingli just, she just got into the national team some years ago, and maybe it was exact time when Yifan stopped playing chess, stopped being active chess player.
Katie, you read the future, because the info just above your head right now is saying the exact same. Did you write these statements, these fun facts for the show? How do you know it? You read the future. It must have been a thought bubble. I agree. That's why it's above you and not me.
I had no idea about that.
Well done. In terms of the position, Black has made quite some progress because that rook now has got to c4 and captured the d4 pawn. It's a pawn up for Black after bishop c7. Yifan is trying to grab the a5 pawn to equalize in terms of material, but Black pieces are now so active with the rook on d3. The b3 pawn was hanging to pressure on f3. I think Lei Tingjie has a really good chance to make a comeback in this game.
Absolutely. Also, some of Hou Yifan's moves are a little bit out of her style. She likes to control and dominate the board. That's what we have seen so far. And the moment she misses some moves, I think she also feels a little bit distracted, and it's just not comfortable for her because, you know, when it's your style not to allow your opponent to have many chances, and then you see, oh, there is one chance, oh, I blundered that, bishop d4, that might be also distraction for her.
Yeah, it is really tough when you miss a move, and then it might lead to even more mistakes. After rook h4, the threat was rook takes g4, so she stops it with king to g3, but now g5 supports the rook. Bishop d2 to try to grab the pawn, but I think Black can defend it with king to f6 or king to g6.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And here we have king on e1, attacks on e6 pawn, but can I play bishop d5? Just guard the, what I'm doing, guard the e6 pawn, and also, you know, try to get something on the queen side.
I like bishop d5, and then I looked at the computer, which is always bigger brain than us. The computer wants to sacrifice a bishop on g5. It might not be the case here, but in some lines you can take on g5 to then give a check on e5. But then both rooks are hanging. I don't know what the computer wants. It's just sometimes too much, too much big brain for me.
King comes on f6 and this.
I guess with bishop d5, if you play bishop d5, then after king f6, you can take on d5 too, and then the rooks are again hanging. So it's a mess, but it didn't happen. So we are not in that line.
Mm-hmm. Good not to have such a blunder. Yeah.
No, this is better. King f6 is a very solid, safe move. And now bishop d5, there are no longer tactical attempts from white. So Black is slowly but surely improving her position.
Yeah, I like this this move, rook h8. She knows that the rook already made here some job, at least just freak the king, white's king, and now she's trying to come on a c file, on open file.
Yeah, we have another very important fact about your head getting. Oh, what happened when I was trying to read the fact that Hou Yifan is indeed a 4-time women's world champion. She won her very first world championship at the age of 16, and she's making a miraculous comeback in an endgame that seemed very much a disadvantage for her. She's now up on exchange.
Beautiful.
But she sacrifices the rook.
I like this rook d5 here, just kills all the counterplay of the Black. That's her. She likes to dominate, and she is.
But is it enough? Is it enough to win? Because it felt like maybe she didn't need to do it just yet. I like the idea, but it might not be enough to win. This may be our first draw of the match from a game that was an advantage for Lei Tingjie. Then Yifan turned the tables, and now it's just a draw.
Yeah, they keep going. But this game is very easy draw. Like, no matter where the king is, even in this position when we have knight's pawn, you just have to get the king here and rook also on the back rank, and it's just draw. There's no way to win or lose that position. But did you see the face of Hou Yifan? She was really surprised that the position was not winning after.
Really? I missed that moment. I was focused on Lei Tingjie's profile picture, which is a battery that's running very low. So hopefully she's not playing from a laptop that's not being charged, if that's what her profile picture refers to in a joking way. But this is the first point. Even if it's half a point, this is the first point that Lei Tingjie scores in this match. She had a really good chance to win the game. In the heat of the time pressure, she made a mistake. Then Yifan was winning, and overall it ended in a draw. Now we are over to the d4 openings, Katy, that you were hoping for.
My turn. But I want to call your attention to Hou Yifan's impressions. Like, what I have seen so far, she's very focused. She's not showing too much emotions. But look at her now. She's trying to cover her face. I even think that maybe she is still considering that position because it was so close to win, and she did not manage. It was so fast, and she had no time to even analyze the game and just to know was it winning or not. So, and what I have seen so far in her matches, like when she gives the half point or the full point to the opponent, then she changes a little bit of her body language. Like
Mhm.
she is
Yeah.
trying, she's showing more with the hands and with the face as well.
I agree with you that she must be disappointed that in the end she didn't manage to win. Obviously, she's aware that with the pawn down endgame, she had a very difficult and possibly losing position. That then she turned the tables and she could still be very well considering what you mentioned on how was that line winning. Let's see if she can recover from this partially the disappointing outcome of the previous game. Psychology is a huge part of chess,
Yeah.
and in a match like this, even more so because there is no break indeed in between the games.
Absolutely, we have 36 more minutes to go. So we still have a bunch of games coming. Now they switched to d4, so it's Lei Tingli who decided to switch a little bit of the character of the match. And here we have it's Catalan bishop over here, but seems like Black decided to go to the line where Black captures on c4 and accepts this sacrifice, but in return White has very strong center.
Mhm.
Also this queen on d8 usually has a problem in Catalan position because queen sort of can't find any better square, because then rook also can come and starts to attack on d and c files. So knight comes to e5. I think this is really dream position for all the Catalan players with White. And what Black has here is before nice square for the knight, which is guarded by the pawn. But here it's a little bit unpleasant to somehow coordinate the pieces because queen has not the perfect square as I mentioned earlier, and there are some breakthroughs here with d5, e takes e5, or just to push e5 and starts to bring knight on e4. There is a rook c1, also knight b5 ideas. And here in Catalan system, Black's main plan is to push c5. So far, this plan is stopped.
It is stopped indeed because of the d5. h6 was the choice of Yifan to question whether this bishop will be traded for the f6 knight or will need to retreat. The choice of letting Jay's bishop to e3. She earned her grandmaster title, as we can see, in the third bubble above Ketty in 2017. That was just a year after Yifan won her fourth World Chess Championship. So it's a bit different timeline, and that's one of the explanations, one of the main reasons why these two haven't faced each other ever in over-the-board chess.
Hold on, she was so young when she got grandmaster title.
The youngest woman ever to earn the grandmaster title, Hu Yifan, earned it at the age of 14.
Yeah, these girls are brilliant. These girls are brilliant. Yeah, this is so hard to achieve the title, hardest title to achieve in chess grandmaster, because now it's not only the rating like 2500, right? You have to also compete among very strong opponents,
To
and you
get the
need
norms,
three
indeed, the
norms.
achievements. Yeah,
It's so
very
hard to
difficult.
get.
Very difficult. So Yifan is the youngest woman player ever, youngest lady to achieve the grandmaster title, and we now have a new youngest grandmaster in the world ever. Sergei Karyakin's record was also broken just a day or two ago, which is obviously breaking news in the chess world because Karyakin held that record for so long. He was 12 when he got the record, and now he's a bit older than 12.
A little bit. Oh, Anna, I was reading some of the comments, and in the interview, our youngest star said that he's training for 12 hours per day, and there were like many comments about this. Like some of the people were blaming parents for that, and some of the people were like saying that this is it's not real. So what do you think about this? And also what our chat thinks, like 12 hours of training. That's a pure dedication to chess.
That is 100% dedication, but I wouldn't blame the parents if the boy likes it. If this is what he wants to do, it's amazing that he found his passion, he found his calling. He possibly wants to win the overall World Chess Championship, so not just collecting the GM title, but I'm sure that his overall inspiration could be the world champion. Maybe Vishy Anand is a role model, maybe the current world champion is a role model, or both, but I think as long as you enjoy what you're doing and it's not someone else, in this case, not the parents deciding for you, it's great. It's great that he loves what he's doing and he's so good at it.
Yeah, and it's really upset. This comment, I read many comments, but this comment really upset me, and it stayed in my head because I know that for many chess players, parents are our hope, our managers, our coaches, our finance, and also sponsors. So they put some part of their lives to our careers. So it's not cool to blame any parents to help the kids to be successful.
Yeah, the parents, the family background is so important in all of these cases, at chess and at other sports or any field where you need to excel from an early age. The support of your family is one of the main factors.
Absolutely. Okay, about this position, Anna, see this queen still here struggles, like can't find the shadow. But Black managed to push c5. I know this looks a little bit scary here for Black because we have a pin here on c5, but for the moment, Black can guarantee that she's the one who captures on c5 the latest, and maybe she doesn't feel that this is the safer, but it's very hard to play against this bishop. The Catalan bishop sometimes is extremely strong. And for the moment, White can choose between queen takes or pawn takes. I think queen takes was my decision, just to have the attack on b6 pawn. But why she took this? Most probably because she wants to get some access on c6 for the bishop, or maybe if pawns are traded, then rook will have really comfortable seat on c6.
Yeah, it's true that queen takes b5 seemed very natural too, but this makes sense for the bishop coming in the future to c6. I agree with you that the pair of bishops here, the Catalan bishop supported by this f4 bishop, is very strong for White, because how will you stop them? How can you try to trade them? You can't play bishop d6. The knight can't really attack or block these bishops at the moment. Knight c5 is a good attempt to be able to keep the queen on c8 and just try to block on the dark squares with bishop d6 now as well, offering a trade.
Absolutely. Here in this move, c4, the c4 is a sacrifice because the pawn can be captured with two pieces, but Black could not play this position anymore. Like White can simply play d6 and start to win with any plan. So that's why here Ho Yifan decided to sacrifice this pawn for activity, and she's hoping to have knight versus light square bishop if White decides to trade the dark square bishops.
Let's see how this will continue now without the dark square bishops. Indeed, this d5 pawn being a pass pawn, but the d6 square is occupied by the Black queen, and king f8 to bring the king closer to the action and try to play rook e7, perhaps at some point to bring the rook to the e file. Now rook e8 is also possible, but it looks a bit suspicious when your king wanders back to the middle of the board after queen g4. The g7 pawn is hanging, and queen c8 check is a threat as well. I think that's a very attractive check to give.
Then queen c6 probably next, or
oh, now after king to e7, queen g8. I don't think there's a way for Black to stop all the threats. f5 to prevent queen f7.
Queen g7 wins the rook. Oh no, this is the first loss.
First win by Lei Tingjie to make the score closer. It was a 2-point lead for Hu Yifan, But now the margin is becoming smaller, and also the psychological side of chess. Will this affect Yifan? We shall know soon. We're going to take a short break, and then when we are back, we will show you the key moments of this previous game before we head over to the rest of the 5-minute blitz portion. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the broadcast of the semifinals of the 2021 Women's Speed Chess Championship hosted by Chess.com and FIDE. Katie and I are here to cover the remaining part of the 5+1 portion of the Blitz between Yifan and Lei Tingjie. Katie, what do you think of the match so far and the result at the moment?
I think we're having what we wanted to see. Lots of dramas over here. And we cannot predict anything yet because these girls are doing it so hard for us to predict anything. But it's worth to mention that it was really good time for a break for Ho Yifan because she was losing a little bit, after the draw. She started to be a little bit worried and was very much visible. And then she lost the last game, so it was a good time for a break, right?
You were so right about that moment when you mentioned if we noticed her facial expression and how she reacted after the third game's draw, which was a game where she was down a pawn. It was a disadvantage in an endgame that probably was losing for her the position. Then she turned the tables and was suddenly winning, but she missed it. She didn't manage to convert, and it did affect her. It meant that this fourth game wasn't the best of her play in the match. Now we shall see if this few-minute break manages to bring the top performance Yifan back to our match, because she started with 2 points of lead, 2 win out of 2 games.
Absolutely. And I love to see Lei Tingley, her face. And she's eating something. She has some snacks.
It's important to hydrate. It's important to also have maybe a bit of nuts, chocolate, banana. I wonder what these players have as their main snacks. Those are usually the regular Grandmaster snacks. But again, we have one of these Berlin endgames. This has been the theme of the match. Every time we have Yifan with the white pieces, Lei Tingjie goes for the Berlin, and this endgame is now for the third time that we see this. At the same time, always a bit of a different variation. This is again not exactly the same that they played earlier, and it makes sense because Lei did get a good enough position in the second game that they played in this endgame. So Yifan changed it up a little bit. Now heading with rook d2, the other rook can go to d1 as well, doubling rooks on the d file.
Yeah, and also on the other hand, Lei Tingley is very confident in her moves, and also her look, face camera says so that she's relaxed, she's not nervous, she's focused on the chess, and she enjoys as well. And look at these very strong pawns. Targeting the white king. These pawns actually might not checkmate white king, but will get a lot of space on the king side, which is very good and useful for these two guys over here.
It's true that after g4, h takes g4 or bishop takes g4, both are an option, but h takes g4 I thought was the more appealing one because it opens up the h5 for the rook. So you have a rook that hasn't been moved, and at the same time it's an active piece. We shall see what's going to happen with the queenside development. There's still yet to be decided where you place the c8 bishop and to bring the a8 rook into the game. But so far, I think Lei Tingjie has managed to equalize. I think White's a slight position advantage, which is oftentimes the case in this Berlin endgame, is not that big of a deal anymore. I think if I had to pick, I would prefer this position from Black's perspective already.
Yeah, me too. And Lei Tingley seems to be a landlord of h5 in these positions. Like, she just owns this file and she knows how
trademark.
to use this.
Indeed.
In the first position, in the first game, she developed her bishop on e6, and it was under knight f4 and knight e6. Not exactly in this position, but the idea was like this. What do you think where she will develop the light square bishop in this structure?
I think here she might consider bishop to f5 now that she have access to that square 2 to put pressure on the c2 pawn. After knight d4, I don't recommend bishop f5 any longer. That would be a big blunder. So will it be simply bishop to d7? And I almost forgot again, you cannot castle.
I almost actually did this arrow to cancel, but no, we do this sign here. No, you can't. You can't. A6. Okay, I know what she wants. She wants to push c5, and she wants to get b5 under the control. So maybe she wants to push b5, b6, and develop the bishop on b7. There's not light square bishop to control all these maneuvering. So
Mhm.
maybe
It's
that's
true
it.
that that's another option to develop the bishop to the long diagonal. A6 is very important to guard the b5 square before you push c5 and allow knight to b5. And now it's over to Yifan to decide. She goes for e6 again. This is a theme that she has used earlier, this pawn sacrifice. She's giving up the pawn so that it frees up her pieces. The bishop can go to f4 and she might be able to collect the c7 pawn in the future.
Yeah, she loves to play e6. Trade the e6 pawn to c. I know that some people might ask like why she does that. This e4 is central pawn, and those pawns are weak, right? They're double, but in fact. Also, e6 pawn will be a target. If white managed just to regroup the rooks on e file, also knight already hitting there, this can be a real target here.
Very true that the e6 pawn is a big weakness too. So it's up a pawn for black at the moment, but it's not easy to hold on to the pawn. And at the same time, by sacrificing the pawn on e6, the position is opening up in a case where black is still undeveloped, the queen side still yet to be developed, plus the king cannot castle, so it will have to go perhaps to f7 in some of those cases if the e6 pawn is in trouble, but not an easy situation for the king now with the open files.
Yeah, I love this bishop d6 move. That stops white to capture c7 pawn, and if white captures this bishop back, then we have c takes d, and all these pawns will be very good looking in the center.
Yeah, that's a good idea to try to straighten the pawn structure. I don't think that Yifan will take, but she's taking her time to decide how to react to bishop d6. Knight to b3. She's offering the f4 bishop because if it's taken, rook d8 check, picks up the h8 rook. It's a beautiful tactical pattern. Of course, bishop takes f4 is not forced, but now the d6 bishop is attacked by three of white's pieces.
Yeah, this is brilliant idea. This is brilliant idea.
I wonder what can
She
black
has
do
very
after this? How do you prevent
yeah.
it?
But how Yifan has this tactical vision and feeling, and she just feels this kind of moves. That's
This is
amazing.
a beautiful tactical pattern because of the h8 rook. That's a loose piece. Jen was also highlighting yesterday these opportunities when it comes to a loose piece being the target of a tactical pattern like this, rook d8 check. So you cannot move the bishop away from d6 and you can't guard it with enough pieces. What will black do? This is troublesome.
Yeah, if black pushes or pawn e5, white can take, and now this bishop guards the rook over here, but the bishop is also at the same file as the king, so white might start with rook e2, rook e1 if necessary, and capture the bishop back on e5.
Yeah, bishop takes e5, even though it's guarding h8. You are right. Now the e5 pin would win the piece back. So there does not seem to be a way for letting Jie to keep material. And it's not just about white winning the pawn back, but if you win the pawn back with these double rooks on the d file, then black will still be in trouble because of the lack of development and the king stuck on e8. A reminder that this was a Berlin endgame, so the king has already moved to d8 and then went back to e8.
Yeah, this king stops the rook to come to the queen side from h file, and also the bishop is not the best piece here. For the moment, it's so hard to find a way how to develop this and how to bring the rook on d8. If black will not take care on this, then it means that she's playing without a rook against these very strong pieces here on d file.
Very true. Bishop e7 was her choice to guard the da square and now rook to h5, but it feels like it's going to be such a tough situation for her on the queen side. The c8 bishop cannot develop because of the rooks on the d5. And if you cannot move the bishop, the a8 rook is out of the game too. It's two inactive pieces, two virtual pieces down almost.
Yeah, absolutely. C4 somehow downs the bar, brings the bar down. Maybe B5 is an idea. B5 just provocates the pawn, and if you capture, I might capture with a pawn and just to open up the a file for the rook.
Yeah, b5 indeed has been played by Lei Tingji as she's trying to take this chance. Maybe c4 wasn't the most precise. It wasn't that simple though to keep improving White's position. It's a very nice position, but it didn't feel like there was anything concrete. I still think that Yifan is doing extremely well after knight a5. The c6 pawn is hanging.
Yeah.
And again, you cannot develop the bishop.
Yeah, this bishop is impossible to come here. I was just looking some moves. Bishop e4 was also very unpleasant because rook d8 comes with a check, and black captured the pawn on c4. And oh wow, what about these islands? Who owns these islands?
Many islands indeed. After rook a7, it seems there's a tactical pattern now that the c8 bishop is a loose piece. So rook d8 check, immediately played by Yifan, sacrificing the rook for 2 pieces. So it's going to be first the dark squared bishop, and then after rook takes c8, she'll collect the c8 bishop too. Guarding c7, very important at the end.
And the rook is here still locked on a7, forever locked.
Now, if king d7, it feels like white is in trouble partially because both pieces are hanging, but there was knight b6 check, guarding the rook and pushing the king back.
Absolutely. Rook b7 here, she's trying to find some counterplay. Maybe bishop a5 here just to you know, control the whole board from e5. And that is so hard here to play with white. Oh, she goes with bishop b6.
I like that too. If the bishop then could make it to c5, maybe b4, bishop c5. It is just so difficult to face these two very active minor pieces. And black also doesn't have a pawn on top of the rook. Usually it's a rook and a pawn that's equal to 2 minor pieces in value.
Yeah. And here, how Yifan is going to start collecting pawns with g4 pawn. So it actually makes sense to capture this and then to play f3 at some point, just to have the path for the king. It is extremely hard to play against 2 pieces. Because 96 was losing a piece.
96
on spot,
and rook g7. There were a couple of ways to win the piece, but also moving the bishop back, and everything else was still a tactical pattern in the air. Hu Yifan wins another game, meaning that now the advantage will be 2 points again. But Lei Tingji already made a comeback from this difficult situation. Let's see if she can do it again, because this match is still very far from the end. We have 16 minutes and a half left from the first portion, which is 5 minutes with 1 second increment. And then there will be an even faster blitz, 3+1. And the final 25 minutes is bullet chess, 1+1.
Yeah, and the most exciting part for everybody, for everyone, and also I think for the players, it's quite challenging to play bullet game, but it's not bullet. They still have this 1 second increment, which can be, you know, can be. It can be a big deal in some positions.
True, at least the flagging is not that much of an issue with the 1 second increment. We have seen players obviously losing on time, but it's not as frequent as if it was no increment at all in bullet chess. We have one of these Scheveningen variations again on the board, the Sicilian defense, a very traditional approach where white castles queen side, pushes pawns on the king side, oftentimes black castles king side, and tries to attack on the queen side, opposite side castling, as we have seen it before.
Yeah, and let's hope that Lei Tingli now sacrificed this knight d5 earlier and better.
It was a good idea, I think. It was a chaotic position, knight d5. Maybe not yet, but sometimes is a thematic sacrifice, as Katie pointed out earlier. Knight c5 is an option for black, or simply develop the bishop with bishop to b7, bring the rook to c8. Now white is ahead with the pawn pushes. White can make it to h5 next move, and then even g6 oftentimes is the right way to push.
Yeah, that's very powerful idea for whites, just to open up, sacrifice a pawn and open up the h and g file and leave the king just alone there. Here, from the previous position here, white changed a little bit. In the previous position, she played f4 first before g5, and now I think it's more clear for her that she has to be the first. She has to be the first who starts to who starts some pawn pushes. That's why she did not play f4 immediately.
True, she's switching to the H and G pawns instead of spending time on pushing the F pawn. This does allow knight to E5, but that knight was gonna have to C4 anyway. Usually it's knight C6, knight A5. From E5 to you're usually just trying to get your knight to this really cool location, the C4 square, after which if there's a trade, black could take back with the pawn and open up the B file.
Exactly, open up the B file, and if white decides to ignore this knight and just don't react, then white knight might be really really naughty and start to be a sacrifice here on B2 and A3, and after D5 also bishop comes here in the game. There are several ideas here for black as well.
Oh, Kitty, the bar has jumped. I didn't mean to cut you off, but bishop d7 seems to be a mistake. There can be tactics here. h6, and then after,
F4
now if you push
then.
g6, f4, because of queen g7 checkmate, the knight cannot move away from e5. Black is losing a piece.
Absolutely, that's it. That's it, I guess. If black here plays g6, which looks very normal move, after f4, knight c4 is not the option, or knight anywhere is not an option because there we have a checkmate. So if black can't push g6, that means that white will capture this pawn with a tempo over here, and h7 will be the next pawn.
Yeah, Yifan obviously realizes that g6 wasn't possible because of f4. She pushes f6 to try to hold on this long diagonal after h takes g7. It's going to be so difficult though with the h file opening up. The king is already so exposed. The black king is very vulnerable while the white king is nowhere near being attacked.
Yeah, sometimes we're not capturing this this kind of pawn spec because they are closing the files, so there will be no check. That's why she did not capture the pawn with the king. So here we have bishop f6 maybe.
She's trying. Yifan is trying to hold this very difficult position. White is up a pawn, but it's not really the pawn up that matters. She could also take on d6, but I was gonna say you're not aiming for an endgame. She prefers the endgame. I thought she was gonna continue with the attack against the king. The endgame too is how to resist the 2 pawn up endgame. It will still be 1 pawn up if the g7 pawn is taken.
Yeah, and your opponent has no counterplays in the endgame. In this kind of endgame here, the queenside attack is not dangerous anymore for white, and all black can do is just to try to hold the position for a draw. So white's logic might be to go to the endgame where there is only 2 results. Like technically it's 2 results. Anything can happen. Anything, including
you're right. There's not much of a risk factor to possible results. Usually you're trying to win. Worst case scenario draw. This of course is a very promising endgame. Extra pawn, very active pieces. The rook's doubled on the d5. The threat is f4 to push the knight away from the defense of the d7 bishop and win more material.
Yeah, I think black still can go f4 if a bishop captures. Oh no.
Yeah, the rook has been attacked since, but I think now with rook g1 check, first of all, Tingzia is asking, will you go back with the bishop to g7? Will you play rook g7? So black has to take a decision. If king to h8, it starts looking scary on the long diagonal in the future with bishop d4.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we have rook g7, and rook from d6 comes on d1 and guards the friend over here. And still white's idea is to push f4 and just get more space in the center.
Let's see how Tingzia will continue. Again, the match situation is that Yifan is leading with 2 points, but this game again could slow down Yifan a little bit. And also psychologically, these turning moments are difficult in a match where you're playing for 3 hours. And yes, at the moment you have the lead, but if your confidence starts going a little lower, And you're low on time as well because Yifan has been the slower player so far. We only have 9.5 minutes left of this 5+1 segment. The next one will be 3 minutes plus 1 second. The final is 1 minute plus 1 second. So we are cutting down the time control to shorter and shorter. I think Yifan will need to speed up because in every single game, Lei Tingjie is usually the one with the time advantage.
Yeah, and that makes us, all of us, to think that Lei Tingli will gonna have a slightly advantage when it comes to 1+1 or 3+1 segments.
I agree with you. And this game too is still, of course, an advantage for her with the extra pawn. I do think Yifan is fighting very well here to have chances to hold. The time situation is extremely low for her, 15 seconds now with only a 1 second increment. She takes on f5. It's such a scary position. You need to calculate always bishop h5 check as well. And where will your king go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these bishops controls the half of the board, and also rook helps over g file. On the piece that is not playing so far, and we didn't mention this knight over here. Maybe white has to find some role for this knight as well.
King to d6, but it looks a bit fishy now. Will there be anything on the d file in the future?
Play this, Anna?
Yeah, what's wrong with rook e6 actually? It might be a lot simpler than what I was trying to do with rook d1 and discover checks. Wait, what is going on? Oh, once the king goes to c7, both bishops are hanging. So maybe for now, black is not losing material, but it looks so suspicious, this piece setup. You're right, the h6 bishop, the d file. Bishop f2 was the choice of Lei Tingjie, and now after king c7, the bishop check on g3. The bar is showing almost completely demolishing advantage for white. Will there be a checkmate pattern with these pair of bishops attacking the king? Both have obviously pair of bishops, but the g3 and g4 bishops are just shooting at this poor king. Yeah, it's so difficult when both of them are attacking the king and all squares are guarded by the bishops.
Absolutely, and the pawn is already on f6, so next move might be f7, and this pawn will be a half of the queen. Very, very close to be a queen. Knight f6, knight h7 is the easiest idea here. And I don't... Oh, there's a bishop g5. Okay, there's a bishop g5.
I like your idea though, because maybe it's still possible with the
yeah,
rook
it is
check.
possible because we have this check here, right? Just intermediate move, which gets out of the pin, and then it's impossible to save.
Yeah, Yifan ran out of time, but the position was already losing, as you mentioned, Katy, with that knight jump and knight h7. Well played by Lei Tingjie, who now has added an extra point to the overall score, meaning that Yifan is still leading, but the gap is a lot smaller. It's a 1 point advantage, and the psychological edge is now on Lei Tingjie's side, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we have once again this position. I was thinking maybe it's time for Hou Yifan to switch from Sicilian to somewhere else, because Lei Tingli seems to be really well prepared in that line. And sometimes, also for myself, I don't like to go with the sharp lines when I feel that I'm not well prepared with my openings, and I need to go a little bit slow. And then in the middle of the tournament, I can start to play a little bit more aggressive. So, well, we can also consider this the middle part of the match, because we have 5 last minutes in this segment.
True. This could be the final game of the 5+1 portion, and then the time control will get shorter and shorter. Again, whenever Yifan has the white pieces, we have this theme that they are playing the Berlin endgame, always a bit of a different version. They are twisting it here and there. The overall strategy is the usual one. Black has the pair of bishops, but a worse pawn structure with the doubled pawns. It's more damaged, and white has more space and more activity for the pieces. So far, Lei Tingjie has done well, except for the first game. I think the games that followed, she managed to equalize in this endgame, and she, I think, is doing well in this game too. Again, is the question, where will the bishop from c8 go? Which diagonal you choose? And can you expand on the queen side with the pawns in the future?
And the task that Black is having right now is e6. E6. How Yifan loves to play e6, no matter what. It's a sacrifice, it's a trade. She likes to give this pawn and create weaknesses, and then to play for these weaknesses. Can we explain something like b3,
I
c4
was
here?
looking at the two because this bishop on d5 looks good, but it's not a stable square after b3, c4. What can black do to run away? You can't push c5 and use the long diagonal. I think there's too much going on the d5 with this loose piece after knight f5. Knight f5 or knight b5, that's winning on the spot material.
Yeah,
So
b5
c5
looks
is not
really
good.
nice.
Bishop b4 could be an option, and then the rook at least has to maybe leave the d5, rook d3. There's bishop e4 in the future, so perhaps bishop b4, rook to e2. I like this position for Yifan, and I think this is her style. This is where she excels so much. Not that obviously she wouldn't be good at the sharper lines, but when you are not that active as a player, when you don't have that much time to train, I think it's easier to go for this type of positions because her overall knowledge obviously is incredible. And she doesn't need to be that sharp for these positions. It's her endgame skills, her technique that shines in these positions.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we have bishop e4 on the board. We expect rook e2, unless she sees something that we don't, like knight b5, maybe it's still there. But very likely she will not go for some sharp alliance here or sacrifices, although she's taking some time, and more time she thinks. I'm
You
more
think she's
confused.
considering a sacrifice? She can choose between rook to d3 and rook e2. That's already a big decision too, if you keep the rooks on the d5 or move it to e2. Ideally, you would want to keep the rooks doubled on the d5, but that steps into bishop e4. And black doesn't have to play bishop e4 immediately. Black can wait for white to push c4, then move the bishop away with a tempo.
Yeah.
Let's see if she picks the d3 or e2 squares, or is there something that we miss, another sacrifice that she can come up with? She needs to decide. At least she now has more time than Lei Tingjie, because the time management in previous games was worse for Yifan.
Yeah. Okay. She was like, okay, I have to make a move. let's play rook e2. Let's play rook e2. Rook e2 actually helps her favorite e6 move here. But this is the first time. This is the first time when the rook from a8 managed to develop on d8. This is the first time.
And
We
it's
have
an
to give an
important
applause
one.
here for
Yes,
Black.
indeed. The rook is in the game. It's not easy to develop the queen side in these endgames. Will we see e6 again? Because that's a move I'm sure Yifan is calculating. E6 is not even a pawn sacrifice here in a way that the c7 pawn is hanging and you can take back on e6. So,
Oh, Anna, you see what might be here if pawn takes. Oh, wait, I got too excited. Then might be c4, and the bishop is trapped here.
That would be beautiful. You're right. You can
Yeah.
trap the bishop because if you push c4 first, the bishop can still go to e6. If you push e6 first and pawn takes e6, bishop takes e6 is the other line. But if pawn takes, c4 wins the piece.
Yeah. To be honest, here after e6, bishop e6 is the move that white should be considered, and maybe for that reason should not play e6. Well, she goes instead knight on f5. Is this knight make some unpleasant checks on g7? No. Okay, maybe bishop comes on g5.
Those could be the ideas indeed. And this will be the final game in the 5+1 segment. We are down to our final 24 seconds of this time control, meaning that the next portion will be 3+1, even faster blitz chess. B5 and the bar is screaming at us, but I think it's more of a positional mistake. Or is there something concrete?
Well, she wants to stop this c4, right? That's why she played that. Wait,
but maybe the computer's point is that you didn't stop it because after c4, those two bishops on the fourth rank will be both loose, and there could be tactical patterns. So Yifan goes for it. Yifan pushes c4.
Okay.
I think this
So
this
if
is an idea.
bishop takes, we capture the rook, and then after rook e4, we're getting one of these bishops, right?
I think that is the pattern indeed. Although in that position there's bishop d3 because the knight on f5-2 is hanging. I think Yifan has better calculated than me for sure. I just saw the loose pieces on the fourth rank, while you still, of course, need to be very precise after bishop takes c4. What's the right move order? I do think you need to include the trade or knight g7. One? Yeah, and there's also knight g7 with bishop g5.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of ways in which it's suspicious, Black's position, to say the least. She takes on d8, very natural. Oh, bishop d3 is met by rook d4 check. Yeah.
Rook b2, and then to get this rook here. Yeah. But I think there are many ways which wins this.
And now rook d4. So this was the idea that if you take on b4, Black takes on f5, but rook d4 picks up the d3 bishop and Yifan is winning.
Yeah.
There was no way out of it. So bishop d3 isn't a blunder in the sense that both bishops were in trouble on the fourth rank. I don't know if bishop e6 could have, maybe bishop e6 was gonna be a better attempt to attack the knight from there, but it's too late for Lei Tingjie to change her mind. The bishop is gone from the board and knight's a piece up for Yifan.
Yeah. Bishop e6. At least it's safer there. The pawn guards the bishop, and here we have a resignation. It's no point to continue and to play this position, of course, and it's more important for them to take some break, take some fresh air, or some I don't know, juice, whatever energy, or maybe even look at some line and check out maybe they want to change something in their opening.
Yeah, I think they definitely deserve this break. We're going to take a few minutes break. And when we are back, we will show you this final position, because in the heat of that c4 tactical pawn push and what's going on, maybe there was still a defense for Lei Tingjie. We will show you that moment, that key moment from the game after a few minute break. And then the players are back too for the 3+1 blitz. Welcome back, everyone, to the broadcast of the Women's Beach Chess Championship. Before we head back to the semifinals, let me remind you that there's another championship coming up in November, the World Chess Championship between the reigning world champion Magnus Carlsen and his challenger Janja Pamjashi. Chess.com has the exclusive rights to broadcast the cameras from the playing hall, so you can see the action up close and personal here on Twitch. So mark it in your calendar. More information to be announced soon. For now, November World Chess Championship, and it's gonna be a big one.
Absolutely. And if you can't make a trip to Dubai, this is the only way to access to the playing venue and check out the players. So I'm gonna doing this. I
think I will watch it from Twitch too. Twitch is my home now, so I will watch it with my community possibly, but also on YouTube there will be coverage, obviously, as many platforms as possible. We will give you more information on that in the future as we are getting closer to the World Championship. But what we do know today is that this match of today, the semifinals between Yifan and Lei Tingjie, is still quite a close one. Yifan has just won the final game of the 5+1, meaning that now her lead is 2 points. But every time she has this 2-point lead, usually Lei Tingjie makes a comeback and wins the next game. Can she do it again in the 3+1? So we are starting for the next 45 minutes. We will see 3 minute plus 1 second increment time control. And after that, bullet chess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we might see here some changes also in the openings because when I'm sure that part of the preparation might be several different openings in different time control. And here we have white changes it and she immediately goes with g4. This is more aggressive approach and just immediately attacks the king side. King is not castled yet, but here we have this g4 anyway, and it somehow is just an unpleasant to play against pawn, so active pawn. How do you feel, Anna, when your opponent plays something very active like?
Oh, I would be terrified, but luckily it's not me playing the game. The Sicilian is too scary for me. I prefer my bad bishop in the French defense. Everyone knows I'm a huge fan of this passive defense, as others label it. But the Sicilian is a lot more dynamic, a lot more exciting, oftentimes will lead to opposite side castling. And we have seen this in the match. White castles queen side, black castles king side, whose attack will be faster. We shall see in this game. They have been repeating the Scheveningen variation, Yifan with the black pieces, but it's a bit of a different version again. So similar ideas, but not the exact same position.
Exactly. Both players delays here the castle. Black's idea in some positions in Sicilian is actually to keep the king on e8 because that's even safer than on g8. That especially happens when white starts g4, g5 immediately. So this pawn push forces black knights to get on the queen side, where actually she needs this piece for the attack. And now white is considering to castle on the long side or the short side, maybe even. But here white had to stop first. Knight coming on c4, because if white loses this bishop on e3, the pawns e4, the push pawns might be even weaknesses there.
Yes, now with the bishop on g2, there's no longer that bishop takes c4 usual idea. So b3 indeed stopped the knight jump. It also means now that the c5 is more vulnerable, though the c3 knight is guarded by this bishop on d4. But if in the right moment black could push e5, then that will be a certain issue where c3 and d4, those two minor pieces, are all tangled up depending on each other's defense. So I wonder if black can find the right moment to push the e-pawn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if black's move here, black would push if black would not mind to push e5 because take, and if bishop takes on b6 here, queen can capture this bishop back and have a really nice control on this long diagonal, or just to capture on c3 and attack on c2 pawn and long castle here. Oh my god, Lei Tingli has a very strong nerves.
Yeah, I like though that now she's guarding the knight with the king too. So king to b2 taking over the role of the bishop in case e5 is pushed. Now the bishop can move. So, suddenly it's not an issue that the c3 knight will be undermined.
And here we have e5. e5 might be really powerful, and if it's followed by d5, it could be even stronger. And here we have it. I was not so sure about this 5 move, but here we have it. Usually this is this d5 opens up the bishop, and we might see some sacrifices here. We might also see some b4 after pawn takes, then bishop comes and pins the knight.
We shall
Yeah,
see.
these
It's
two
very
moves.
brave, obviously, pushing e5 and d5 straight away. And there can be tactical motives. Bishop takes a3 check as well. That will deflect the king from the defense of the c3 knight. Or b4, if black could push b4, a takes b4, bishop b4, obviously that pin would be extremely strong.
Yeah. Okay, white has this very strong and powerful weapon against all of this. After d6, the main problem is that the b7 bishop will be hanging in the end.
Let's see, it's such a rich position. The black king is still in the middle of the board, but there are all sorts of tactics around the white king as well. Yifan is taking her time for a reason. There's so much to calculate. Is it the bishop sacrifice? Is it b4? Is it something else that she should play first? She takes on c3. So this move order, now bishop takes a3. Same idea, but it's forcing the queen trade. So she wanted to play this endgame instead of having her king exposed in the middle of the board. Makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
This is brilliant. This is brilliant. And wow, I was so surprised to see something like this because it's such an unnatural, right? King is there, queen is there, and they both guard the knight, and you just anyway capture it. Wow. And look at this rook now, so active on h2 on the second rank. And a rook is trying to annoy the light square bishop. Black can also push the h pawn and try to, push it as far as possible.
Yeah, this rook has captured both the c pawn and now the h pawn as well. The black king is still in the middle of the board, and you can't castle because the d7 knight needs the help of the king. Maybe this is the case that after the trade on d7, this king will be okay in the center of the board now that it's an end game. And finally, the rook from h8 can be brought into the game.
Yeah. Here we have this position. King e8, it makes sense, not only 7 because there might be some checks, but king e8 is safer now. Maybe rook c2. Oh, no. Rook c2 is impossible. Then rook comes on d8, right? So white's idea is to play rook, bishop b6 and rook d8, and here we have it. But this is not good. Maybe because of
the
b4?
white king seems like it could get into trouble after b4, king a4.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this is almost checkmate. That white king has barely any squares to go to. If rook a8, the only move is bishop a7.
And a4 now. She wants to open up the file for the rook as well.
Makes perfect sense, of course, now that this a7 bishop was stuck and pinned. King b6 steps out of the pin. Yifan is down to 8 seconds. She has to be very precise still, but this is a winning chance, obviously, for her.
Yeah, absolutely. The king is super active here, so this might decide here something. And actually black has here two pawns extra, so white is going to get one, but still I think even one pawn is enough to win that endgame.
Indeed, but 2 is even better, of course. With rook g4, you can hold on to the b4 pawn. And for that reason, Lei Tingjie resigns. This is now a 3-point lead for Yifan. Can Lei Tingjie make a comeback? Lei has been the faster player, so we think that the 3+1 and especially the 1+1 time control might favor her. The shorter the time control, probably the better for her. But now it's already a bigger gap, and she needs to turn the tables.
Absolutely, she needs that. It was a very smart decision from her side to resign there. That's the position actually we don't resign in the rook end game, but she knows that it's gonna be a longer game. Why to waste any second for that when she has to play as much games as possible to get some points out of there.
Very true. We see this how the overall timer is part of the match. You guys see that we have 36 minutes left of the 3+1. If you are trailing, if you have a couple of points of disadvantage, you want to make it happen in a way that you have more and more games as a chance for a comeback. And if you're leading in the match, you might not resign even in completely lost positions because time is running, time is ticking, and it will allow you to have only less games left from the match. So it's very much part of the strategy.
Absolutely. Also, this is online chess. Anything can happen. Like a mouse can be not the best friend of you, and we might see some mouse lives too. But this is not a time you cannot really look for this. You can't count on these things. It's time to move on, and it's time to. We have seen several times Lei Tingli coming back and getting really close to Hou Yifan. And to be honest, if you have in the end of this segment only 1 point difference in the between these two players in the bullet segment, anything can happen.
Bullet will be crazy. I agree with you that I think even 1 minute for sure, 1 minute, sorry, at 1 point, but maybe even if it's 2, 3, or 4 points, who knows what can happen in bullet chess, because it's so many games that you get to play in 25 minutes. We have seen players making comebacks from 3 or even 4 points of disadvantage. It might happen, but Lei Tingjie, I don't think she wants to get to the bullet by not scoring. So she will try her very best. Of course, she still has over half an hour to make a comeback in the 3+1 portion.
Absolutely, and it also matters how what is your mood, like how confident you feel before the start of the next segment. So that's why there she has to like get closer to Hou Yifan, or she has to win the last game. It also boosts your mood, right? When you win the last game, you kind of think that you're the one who runs the match.
Yeah, you can start a winning streak. The psychological side of these matches obviously is extremely important too. Now we see one of these Berlin endgames that has been the theme, as we mentioned. Every time Yifan plays with the white pieces, we get to see this Berlin endgame. Bit of a different version every time, but the overall strategy being so similar when it comes to the main theme, the pair of bishops for black, but better pawn structure for white and more space. This rook on h5 at the moment is a bit out of the game. It was trying to come into the game through the 5th rank, but you can't push g4 here just yet. If you could push g4 and trade that g4 for the e pawn, that could be a way to activate the rook.
Yeah, absolutely. G4 might be at some point black's idea here. Yeah, we might see this, because otherwise how the rook really comes to the center? Like, it's so hard to get. It's not easy to get here, right? So this can be a shortcut.
It could be a shortcut, and I think that's what Lei Tingjie is trying to make happen. At the same time, you need to find the right moment for that break, because for now, she just plays bishop to b4 to activate the bishop further. Yifan comes back to e2 with the knight. If g4 now, I think after probably h takes g4, rook takes e5, even though you managed to activate the rook, it's not ideal because the h4 pawn will be weak after the h file opens up. So rook h1 would be a way to attack the h4 pawn. It might not be the right moment to push g4 for that reason.
Yeah, but what was that rook h8? Because now white simply captured the pawn on g5, and she can capture the second one as well. Is it sacrifice? No. It was a blunder, I guess.
It happened so quickly. I was still analyzing in my head those pushes. If we can show it real quick what happened at the end of that game, because it was a blunder by Lei Tingjie.
Let's see this.
She just went back to h8 with the rook in a position where the rook wasn't attacked. So she may have miscalculated that there's no follow-up. Did she count on bishop c5 check? But king f1 was played, and It's 2 pawns up for white. She resigned for the reason of what Katie mentioned earlier. The overall timer matters, of course, for the match. She didn't want to continue playing a losing endgame when she needs to win the next game.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that she overlooked this bishop takes h3, g takes h3, and there's not a checkmate because knight guards here this g1 square. But anyway, after bishop takes here on h3, there is a checkmate here. So maybe not sure. That was bishop h3 was the move she considered earlier, some moves earlier, but it did not work. So that's why we had very, very quick resignation.
And that means we are back with the situation where Lei Tingjie has the white pieces. Again, it's a Scheveningen. She will try to attack again on the king side. Maybe in this game she's not castling queen side at the moment.
She's playing again with the rook.
Yes.
Stop doing that.
I love it though. It's so dynamic and she has done well in these type of positions. It's tough when you are on a losing streak, and so far Yifan's advantage is a very convincing 4-point lead in the match. But with half an hour in this blitz portion and then another 25 minutes of bullet chess, anything can still happen. She just needs to start turning the tables. Again, of course, much easier said than done, but I'm sure that she still has high hopes and will do everything she can. Now, h5, going for it on the king side. If black castles king side, that's a brave move. It's a brave move to castle into it. At the same time, you might need to if you want to bring the h8 rook into the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she will not castle now in this game either. And actually, that's how it works in Sicily. And sometimes you're keeping this king in the center, and then in the end game it's even better because it's closer to the central squares.
Mm-hmm. Trade on h6, but I think now both rook takes and g takes h6 makes sense for activating the rook. This h8 rook will come to g8, and finally it feels like it's the white king that could be more exposed through that open g file, as well as the fact that black has the semi-open c file. The queen on b6 is very well positioned to control crucial squares. I think that Yifan is in control in this game. Something has gone wrong for Lei Tingjie. In the previous game, she castled usually earlier, castled queenside and then attacked. Maybe she went for a bit too aggressive of a choice for this one. Mm-hmm. Expanding. Oh, bishop takes e4. Wait a second. So the c4 knight was attacked. She didn't want to go back to a5. That was the only square for the knight. So instead of that, bishop takes e4. I don't think it was necessary to sacrifice, but Yifan goes for it. Is it bishop f6, the follow-up idea with the piece sacrifice? Brave, very brave.
But then I'm so confused right now. I'm so confused because after this, even rook b1, like what is maybe her idea is to capture this and somehow access on g1.
I think so. Could be the idea. It's a very bold choice, obviously, going for bishop takes e4, but Yifan has the confidence that here, because of the king being still in the middle of the board, both kings are, but the white king is the one that's being targeted. She goes for this piece sacrifice. I'm still just so puzzled and at the same time amazed. I didn't expect this bishop takes c4, and even though black is down a piece, our bar next to the board, you guys can see that bar on the left side is showing that black is better with a piece down. That says a lot about the compensation for the material.
It can be also some positional sacrifice in this structure when the king is in the center, that you can allow yourself to have such a traits to sacrifice a piece and to have extremely strong attack.
Let's see what's going to happen now with the bishop coming to the long diagonal. Queen a5 check as well. The king can't really hide, so bishop d2 to shield the king, but now the pawn on a3 is captured too. This is now already 3 pawns for black for the piece. So equal material in a sense that 3 pawns are the same value as one minor piece. Of course, it also depends on the placement of the pawns. It will depend on how fast can those pawns run, the A pass pawn. But at the moment, it's still the main story about the kings, the safety of the kings. And will this E1 king be okay now? C2 is a vulnerable spot that's now protected by the E3 knight. I think this is just so sharp, and suddenly the black king 2 is being attacked after f5. The f5 will open up, f takes e6 now.
Yeah, and bar starts to go up and up. Now, Bar is really shaky. Bar is a bit confused, just like us.
I think at this stage, it doesn't matter what the evaluation of the computer is, because both players are down to their final seconds. There's only a 1 second increment. The position is chaotic. Yeah. Piece up for white, but the kings are extremely vulnerable. The white king still is more exposed than the black one. At the same time, there can be tactics now. Apparently, white's position is getting better and better, but will Lei Tingjie find it with no time on the clock? Ooh. Queen trade. Okay, at least we avoided the checkmates.
Yeah, queen trade should be really good for white here. White has less things to worry. There will be not checkmate ideas anymore, or some like unpleasant checks, because all these squares are controlled and we have less and less pieces on the board. So knight is 4 to 3 pawns, but these pawns are somehow not very much connected, and they are not defending each other. And here we had very nice sacrifice on d6, and white managed to get another pawn.
This endgame now with the trade of the bishops obviously is getting even better and better for white. Black's hope is this A pass pawn. So Yifan is trying to bring the rook to b2 to undermine the blockading piece on a2. She still has practical chances, obviously, because of the low time that both players have. It is still a position that white has to convert. You don't just get your opponent resign just because the bar is telling the evaluation being very much in white's favor. So I think we will see Yifan trying her best to eliminate the pawns, because if you get rid of both white pawns, white doesn't have enough material to win the game. Whoa, that ended so
crazy game.
Suddenly. Can we show the final moves, because it ended so suddenly, Katie?
Yes. So black was considering to take here on h5, but after rook a5, the rook will be gone. So yeah, I think it's also so hard to continue here and to play this, because everything is hanging and hard to come back here in this position.
The tactical refutation indeed. Rook takes h5, met by rook a5 check, and for that reason Yifan resigned. She could have continued the game if she wanted to use more of the overall timer of the match. We still have 23 and a half minutes left of the 3+1. So it's interesting that she didn't want the game to go longer and spend much more time, but much more. A minute, maybe she could have spent another minute or so of the overall timer. Instead, she prefers to get the new game and try to win even more games. I like the attitude. I like that she doesn't want to just spend the time of the overall match. You guys can see 3+1 up there and 23 minutes left. Of course, with a 3-point lead, the less games, the closer she is to win the match. But I think she wants to win the match with an even bigger score at this stage.
Absolutely. She wants to get as much points as possible for the final minutes of the final segment, because she'll be, a little bit more relaxed, and she will enjoy more to play chess rather than be, to be looking and counting the points and the time there. So she wants to have some advantage then in order to enjoy a little bit of the chess team.
And the bullet will be crazy. So obviously, the bigger advantage you have after the 5+1 and 3+1, the better it is heading toward the most chaotic segment of all. The final 25 minutes of the match will be bullet chess. Those of you, by the way, joining us from the front page of Twitch, welcome to our coverage of the 2021 Women's Speed Chess Championship. This is the semifinals between two of the strongest female players in the world. Next to my camera, we have Yifan, four-time women's world chess champion and the youngest woman player ever to achieve the Grandmaster title, also the youngest to ever win a world championship. She was only 16 when she won the Women's World Chess Championship. Her opponent, though, is also an extremely strong and rising star player, Lei Tingjie from China. The two haven't faced each other in over-the-board tournaments because Yifan recently hasn't been very active, while Lei has achieved the Grandmaster title in 2017. So it's all going up for Lei Tingjie. They haven't met at an over-the-board tournament yet, but now they are here to fight for the final spot in the finals. Tomorrow is the last match of the Women's Speed Championship. $20,000 is the first prize, and only one of these ladies can make it to the final to play for that prize.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's what's is very important right now. It's just to get in the finals, and when you are in the finals, there is a huge chance to get the main prize, or even the second place gets a lot of money. So why not? Why not? Talking about Lei Tingli, she is one of few ladies who achieved the highest chess title, and as I know, according to the statistics, there are like 18 female chess players who achieved this title. It was 17 last time I was checking, but now we have another girl, Jansaya Abdulmalik, who managed to get her a 2500 rating, and she already had 3 norms of Grandmaster. So in total, we have 18 girls who are holding the highest titles, and many of them are competing in this tournament. So such a stars here we are having.
Absolutely not an easy feat to achieve the highest chess title, the Grandmaster title. As you mentioned, only a few ladies have it in the world. So to be among the best of the best, Lei Tingjie is number 3 in the world by Blitz rating. And this event, the Speed Chess Championship, as the name says, is a very fast-paced version of chess. She still has a chance to make a comeback, but she needs to start turning the tables because at the moment, Yifan is leading with 3 points.
Yeah. Yeah, but everything can be happened. Anything is possible. We have seen a lot of things happening in chess. So we're keeping all the eyes and hopes for these two players. Um, and what is the situation in this current position?
It is a more solid situation than what we have seen before. It was a different version of the Rui Lopez. We have seen the Berlin, but no Berlin endgames this time. D3 was played by Yifan to keep the position more complex in a way that there are more pieces on the board. Not that the Berlin endgame is not complex enough, but it's a different complexity when you manage to keep most of the pieces on the board. And this maneuvering position where we have seen the knights going back and forth, trying to get to key squares. The current position is a lot simpler after the trade of rooks. The white knight is heading toward e3 to make it to f5, but I think as soon as you play knight e3, the bishop will trade that knight before you can land on e5. Before you can land on f5. The f5 square is the one I would love to somehow teleport the knight to.
Yeah, that's I think what bishop is here for. And here we have it. Here we have it. This bishop was waiting for the knight to walk into e3 square, and now knight jumps on g4. We might see some open h file in the future. If somehow black manage that, that could be really nice to get the attack on also on h file. But for the moment, knight is hanging, so don't listen to me, don't do that. It's gonna be really scary, really bad. And here in the end game, when we have queen and knight versus bishop and knight, many players would say that queen and knight is really good combination of the pieces, because they are they have a harmony and they cover all the possible squares. And in this current situation, we also have a little bit unpleasant pawn structure for the light square bishop, right? We always try not to uh, fix the pawns at the same square as a bishop is, because the bishop might be a little bit limited.
Very important indeed about the color of the squares on which the structure is fixed. And here, Black still is trying with the pin on the c5, and we shall see whether she can find a grip on the position. It's a very solid structure. I think the most likely outcome is a draw, but the knight is a tricky piece. Both players are down to their final 10 seconds. This pawn on b2 has been won, but it seems it was a mistake, yet Yifan doesn't have time to calculate, makes a semi-mistake as a response. There was a way to exploit the position, or is there still a way? It seems there still is a way. Bishop d5 cuts the connection between the queen and the knight, and now bishop c6 wins the piece.
Oh, beautiful combination. Beautiful combination. Wow, that is brilliant. Technique of the end game. I really thought that white lose the b2 pawn.
Yeah, it felt like Lei Tingjie was the one trying to win, but I think at that rate, when she took on b2, she forgot about the counter chances of Yifan, which Yifan immediately used and managed to win another game. Now it's a 4-point lead for Yifan. Can Lei Tingjie make a comeback? 16 minutes left of the 3+1 portion, and then we're gonna have bullet chess, which is the craziest, fastest time control. So still, everything is possible, but it's getting tougher and tougher, of course, for Lei Tingjie to start to make a comeback.
Yeah, she's doing very well at the opening. Then she has a very good position in the middle game, and then somehow there are little tricks that she's missing, and Hou Yifan is not missing. That's why she lost several games. She's in the end game with some very small, like 2 or 3 moves tactics, let's say. So that's why it's so important for everyone at any level to practice tactics and the puzzles daily as much as possible, and just to have just to be always in shape and to have the tactical motives and skills.
Yeah, indeed, it's really very important. At the same time, Yifan said that she doesn't have much time for training anymore, and yet she's still so sharp. I wish I could do this, have a full-time job at the university. I haven't trained much recently, and yet here I am qualifying to the final easily. She played in the Champions Tour event against the world champion and the rest of the field. Of course, it's a very strong field, but she held her own. She played some really nice games, even like this, that she hasn't trained that much recently.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know, actually, like we were talking about this, there are some speculations and there are some thoughts like maybe she says that she's not training, but she's still training like 2-3 hours.
And she's preparing for a comeback, maybe. Maybe she's preparing for that.
Oh yeah, because in the interview she did not really give us the clear answer, like no, I have other plans, but I think she really wants to come back. She really wants to come back, and here we have she's playing this tournament, and this week she also played another strong online event, and then she will be playing also in August. So I think we have her back.
I think at least partially she's back, and as she mentioned, maybe when the global situation with the pandemic gets better and there will be more opportunities to travel, perhaps she will want to come back to over the board chess as well. For now, we have online chess.
Yes, and also from just remember from the interview, she said that's also playing chess is not only option for a person, that can be another roles as well. So that's interesting. That's interesting what she has in her mind and what's her plans.
For now, I think her plan is to keep crushing it because she's doing so well in this match. Her opponent, Lei Tingjie, is world number 3 by Blitz rating. She eliminated 9 in the quarterfinals, Antoneta Stefanova, former women's world champion. And yet, Yifan makes it look easy to win a match for now. Again, we are nowhere near the end. There's 13 minutes left, 12 and a half of this segment, and then 25 minutes of bullet chess. But for now, I feel like Yifan is very convincing, and it seems that if she continues like this, she will be the opponent of Harika Dronavali. Again, I don't want to jinx it. I'm just saying what has happened so far.
Yeah, And also, I look at her like she's so focused. In this situation when she is leading with some points, she's very focused. And the moment there is something that she's missing, her body structure changed, and also her face changed. This is really nice to see the character of the chess player.
Indeed, and she's sensing that this position is not good for her. Now Yifan has to defend very precisely because Lei Tingjie is going for it with f6. Perhaps there were other alternatives too, but here Lei Tingjie is trying to open up the position since the black king is still in the middle of the board. Maybe there were other even more aggressive choices. Now we see a queen trade, and yet even after the queen trade, knight e5 check, and his f7 pawn is in trouble. That's an issue because it will create an f6 passed pawn, and there's an h passed pawn too.
Mm-hmm. And now whites might come here knight g7 and push this pawn on h7, or it's not even necessary to get this knight on g7. No, she wants. Okay.
I like it. I like the idea of knight g7. The two knights so strong.
Yeah, okay. She also might think to come with the rook on g file, g8, g7, just to. White needs to get rid of this rook, and then it will be a free pass for the pawn.
Yeah,
so here we have a rook.
Even saying mate in 5 now after rook g7. There's no way out for this black king after rook takes f7 and rook g1. This is now a completely winning position for Lei Tingjie, and this is what she needs for the comeback. Actually, not even the other rook. You use this rook to free the knight and now double rooks. There were so many different ways in which you can go for the checkmate with knight g6 too, but I think she didn't even want Yifan to be able to sacrifice the rook for the knight, so she prefers this cleaner conversion. Of course, nice game by Lei Tingjie from a difficult tournament situation. The match is heading in Yifan's way, but this could be a comeback. This could mean a turn of the tables.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not giving any easy time. Lei Tingjie is not giving any easy time to Hou Yifan. Maybe we can take a look at the previous game because it was very nice checkmate. Before the things are getting heated here, let's get the board back. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So at this point, here, when the rook got on g7, here black had not any practical chances or whatever chances to survive, because we have here beautiful checkmate. And Lei Tingjie just made this everything in second without even thinking, because there are so many ideas. There are some knight checks and from
and
here
rook
as
f7.
well. But she made this in a second. This is how fast she sees this moves.
Yeah, there's so many mates here. Rook g8 is checkmate. Rook f7, knight g7 is checkmate. If the rook goes back to h8 to guard g8, then you also have knight g6, rook e7 checkmate. So way too many patterns. The king could not survive.
Yeah, it was a beautiful one. All right, we have this game in progress, and somehow they changed the opening. This is not something that I remember from the very beginning, and now they start to play this type of this variation of Ruy Lopez.
Yes, it was again what happened in the previous game, that no longer Yifan is going for the Berlin endgame, but she pushes d3 to guard the e4 pawn against the Berlin variation of the Ruy Lopez. So it is again the situation when there are more pieces left on the board, but a more symmetrical pawn structure at the same time. This knight maneuver is a very typical one heading toward the f5 square.
Yeah, and at this point, there's not a bishop on this diagonal which can capture the knight. So knight safely got on e3.
I like these knight maneuvers a lot. At the same time, if you play knight f5, usually black is ready to face that move with the capture bishop takes f5. That's why it was important for black to move the d7 knight away and open the diagonal for the bishop.
Yeah, and also what she's doing, she's maneuvering the knight as well from d7. Now on g6, hitting the bishop, and when bishop comes on g3, most probably, she will have this knight f4. Yeah, she just played. Played this.
Both knights were heading toward that square. Now after the trade, though, white shouldn't do the same. If you take on f4, there's no knight f5 anymore because of the pin on the e file.
Yeah, that will lose the queen.
So instead, knight c4 happened and b5, knight d2.
It seems like the latest moves here turn to be really good for black. Black activated the bishop and got really nice pin over here. Black has a pair of bishop. Also, the queen structure pawns looks way much better for black rather than these pawns in here. So can we consider that black has here a little bit like better position?
I think so. I certainly like Black's position a lot with the more space, good grip on the center as well. I see our viewers on Twitch discussing the Connect 4. We have a beautiful Connect 3 here with the black pawns. It's an important theme, obviously. And shout out to our viewers on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, for watching the semifinals of the Women's Speeches Championship with us. This is the final 6 minutes of the 3+1 portion. And then the final stage will be bullet. 1+1, 1 minute, 1 second increment.
Yeah, these last two games turns to be the really good for Lei Tingli. She's showing her true face, who she really is, and we are getting very close to the final segment 1+1. I'm sure that we are going to see a really beautiful fight over here. Can be also dramatic. We can accept that too. No problem. It can be also a bit dramatic.
I think we are rooting for a very close match. As yes. much as we have fans of either Yifan or Leng Tingjie in the chat, but we are all rooting for a very exciting match that will have ups and downs. Bullet chess especially will bring even more of those moments when the evaluation bar is dancing with the position changing constantly. This is a great position for Lei Tingjie, and it's a good chance for her to somehow win again. And even though she is still down 3 points in the match, as soon as you start winning, that boosts your confidence. It could start a winning streak for you in a match. So I think she has all the chances now in this game and also in the overall match, thanks to starting to win in a row, the previous game and this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And also losing some games in a row, it affects anyone. So you have these two effects. First, you feel very confident. Second, your opponent feels more and more distracted and more worried about the current events, right? So that's why it is important to have 2-3 wins of strike in a row, and then you can win the rest.
Let's see if Yifan can hold this. It's a pawn down for white, but what's good for white for the fighting chances is that it's opposite colored bishops. And I was gonna add though that is good usually in endgames though, because as long as there are attacking chances, the issue with opposite colored bishops is that the bishop of Yifan cannot defend on dark squares. And now after f3 with the idea of queen h2 checkmate patterns, this is becoming extremely sharp. And I think Yifan will not get the endgame she wants. She cannot trade the queens. The king is getting into trouble.
Oh wow! And after h4, there's queen g4, queen h3, path for the queen, and white king has troubles. Cannot really survive in this fight. I believe that it's going to be really hard to survive.
She's trying to run to the queen side, which is definitely the one attempt that she had to go for. But after bishop takes f2, now the d3 rook is hanging. It was a beautiful pattern. King f2 would have been met with queen g2 check. So Lei Tingjie wins yet another game. And suddenly the margin is not as big as it was. Yifan used to lead with 4 points. Now, after 2 wins, Lei Tingjie has managed to make that gap only 2 points with still 3 minutes to go. This could be the final 3+1, and then we will have bullet chess for 25 minutes.
Exactly, and here we have a Catalan defense once again, where black comes bishop b4 check, and it might look a little bit unnatural if you don't play Catalan, and then you take the bishop back on d6. You are losing some moves, but this is really good because bishop on d2 usually feels really, really bad. It covers the d file. Sometimes d4 pawn is hanging, and white has to anyway move this bishop from d2. That's why they played really, really fast here. But this is not the standard Catalan defense that we have seen. This is something they know only.
It is a
They
sideline
know.
indeed. They seem
know
to
what
know
they're
what they
doing.
are doing with this temporary pawn sacrifice on d5. White is still behind in development. So you gain a pawn, but it gives some time for black to take the initiative since black has already castled. There can be tactical patterns with the loose bishop on d5. I think she's considering whether to move the bishop away right now from d6 to attack the bishop, and then the d4 pawn is hanging as well. So a couple of options here for Yifan. Bishop e5 is her choice. So after d takes e5, she'll take the bishop on d5. Bishop takes f7 is an option too, to grab a pawn before taking on e5. But again, the white king is still in the middle of the board. So I think this is a really complex position where black does have the upper hand when it comes to the initiative. Will it be enough for 2 pawns is the question.
Yeah, there will be 2 pawns, but light squares of white will be really weak, and also the king has a little bit difficulties here to castle on time. After knight f3, we might see bishop g4 or bishop h3, even just to stop in white from castling. I love this move, bishop h3. Also aims to come on g2 and capture this knight. But what she's doing here, she's just, pressing here on e5, and if white managed to castle here in this position, maybe she just wants to get first d5 pawn and then to play once again opposite color the bishop, and in this case there is weaknesses in white's position on the light squares.
Indeed, and right now you can go bishop h3 to highlight those weaknesses on the light squares. There's no fianchetto bishop on g2 for white. So this knight from f3 cannot abandon that f3 square because of the checkmate on g2. It is pinned in that tactical pattern. It is still 2 pawns up for late Tingjie, but the position is very sharp and Yifan's pieces are extremely active.
Yes, and here we see 0-0-0, so that means that this is surely the last game in this segment before we go to the 1-1. And here is exactly what we're talking about. If Hao Yifan loses the game, it's going to be 3 losses in a row, so that's not the best option for her, and also for Lei Tingli, if she loses the game here, that might be a little bit like losing a hope, like, oh, I had a nice try here and I lost it, I blow it. So now this is very important, and after my speech I think draw is the best result for our girls.
Yeah, for the score to look a bit prettier for the full point. In any case, though, it is the final 3+1 game, and then we will head to the bullet portion. This game does count. To those of you who are asking, it counts, but there will be no more blitz games. That's simply what the overall timer says. And after bishop e6, it is the question where the queen goes. Can the b7 pawn be taken? Because that's a free pawn, but there could be tactical patterns. Rook b8, the queen has only the a6 square to go to.
Yeah, that's true. Then queen can make on d3. I think we should not chase the queen. Queen is so far. And here we have this beautiful sacrifice, and white bar is not dropping down.
No, the evaluation bar is not impressed. I would be impressed because the light squares are all there for black. You are threatening bishop h3, queen g2 checkmate. But if bishop h3, there's queen d5 check, trading the queens, unfortunately for Yifan.
Yes, that's maybe what black misses here. Queen b5 was really a beautiful move. It also might aim to come here on the king side and try to get on g2 and act a little bit like a bishop for a moment to guard these light squares, and it seems like it's too much of the material for white.
King h8 makes sense because now bishop h3 is a threat with checkmate on g2. It would still be met with queen d5, but at least it's no longer a check. I think Yifan had a really dynamic game here where she was inspired to sacrifice a pawn or two, but it didn't work in the end, especially this final exchange sacrifice. So
This is
white is
winning,
up.
Anna.
Yeah, white is up
Takes
now. Rook.
6. Yes.
What a winning streak for Lei Tingjie, who was down 4 points in this match. And with this game, she could make that margin only 1 point with the bullet to start after this game. 25 minutes of bullet chess, and she was the faster player in the match. So I think this match is still wide open. Lei Tingjie wins a third game in a row.
Yeah, and her chess.com rating also increased from 26 to 27.
So, not bad. Not bad. We will show you guys the key moments of this final blitz game and then start the bullet portion after a short break. So don't go anywhere. Key moments of the previous game as well as the final segment of the match. 25 minutes of bullet chess starting soon. Welcome back, everyone, to our coverage of the Women's Speed Chess Championship. We also have, obviously, for you the Junior Speed Chess Championship underway. The next match will be on July the 4th, and the top junior players in the world are competing for a total prize fund of $35,000. Make sure to tune in on July the 4th for the next match. And in the meantime, Katie, we also have a very exciting match with the final phase about to start. It's bullet chess now between Yifan and Lei Tingjie. And the difference is only a 1-point lead. Yifan used to lead midway through the blitz. She had a 4-point lead. Now it's only 1 point, and Lei Tingjie was the faster player during the match. What's gonna happen?
That's actually what we were like predicting, not predicting, but we were saying that what happens if there is only 1 point difference, and then we got on the time at that moment to the bullets segment, and we're gonna say right now. Because they started, Anna, we wanted to show the previous game. Oh, what's
But
your
they
suggestion?
wanted to start the bullets. I think we will not have the time because bullet is such a fast-paced time control. Just on a side note, that Lei Tingjie defended very precisely in a game where Yifan sacrificed 2 pawns and then even an exchange, but Yifan's attack couldn't be executed fully due to the precise defense of Lei Tingjie, meaning a third win for Lei Tingjie. Now she's back in the match, and she was the faster player in this game. Both players are still above a minute. There's a 1 second increment. 1 minute plus 1 second is the time control. Let's see what's going to happen with this knight maneuver toward f4, a theme, of course, in these kind of structures.
Are the knights?
There's no knight takes h3 just yet because the knight is guarded on f3 by the other knight too. But that is something that I'm sure that Lei Tingjie is looking at, a potential sacrifice in the future.
Yeah, if knight stops supporting the other friend over here, maybe black will immediately capture on h3 with a check, and just ruin the pawn structure on the king side and also win the pawn. So what has here the center with these pawns, but somehow it doesn't really shows that because of this center, white has here advantage.
It doesn't show, and I think partially there's the semi-open f5 for black that gives compensation and all sorts of tactical patterns in the air, oftentimes with the sacrifice on h3 or g2 in the right moment. It's not yet the moment because that f3 knight is well guarded by the d2 knight and the queen on e3. e5 was pushed, and now d5, keeping the center closed.
Yes, that gives white a chance to have a target here. See pawn. So we might see some doubles, double rooks here on c file. And meanwhile, king h2, I think king h2 wants to just get rid of this knight h3 idea forever and free the knights to maneuvering somewhere on the queen side.
I like this pressure that Yifan is building up on the c file, targeting the c7 pawn, and now g3 chasing the knight back from f4. Very nice how she's expanding, improving her pieces step by step, and it's a much needed comeback after a 3-game loss streak. She lost 3 games in a row, and that break, I think, was good for stopping the bleeding and just starting from a blank page in the bullet phase.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we have b5 maybe coming just to guard the pawn, and then with knights c4, which attacks both of the pawns here on d6 and b6, and we have knight d4. Black is still aiming to have some play on the king side. And now there is nothing to cover this file, although the queen and the rook guards f3 and f2 square perfectly well.
And at the same time, the c6 pass pawn for white is a really strong one, defended by the b5 pawn. I think Yifan has a great chance in this endgame, but they are so low on time. Anything can happen in the heat of the time pressure with only 1 second increment.
Absolutely. Now rook is hanging on a3, and white was guarding that. And meanwhile, black used that time, and she stepped down with the king. and there was
Oh,
no
suddenly it's winning for
queen.
black, but it was missed. It happened so quickly, we will not be able to even show it. Again, the chances are back with the attack on h3, queen back to c7 now, and the dark square is threatening. It's a
All
back
right.
and forth. The bar is dancing together with the blankies in the chat. Thank you everyone for being here, tuning in on Twitch and our YouTube. This is the semifinals between Yifan and Lei Tingjie. 1 point lead for Yifan, but this game is crazy.
It is. And here we have an extra rook for white. That's a full rook for white. And she's trying to trade any pieces left on the board. And here we have Yifan coming back in the first game of 1+1 segment.
So it's a 2-point lead. It was a much needed win for Yifan after a 3-game loss streak. That was the end of the blitz phase. This game could have gone either way. The previous bullet game, Lei Tingjie was winning on a couple of occasions, then Yifan was winning and back and forth. But we still have 20 minutes left of the bullet portion, so 20 minutes for Lei Tingjie to make up for the 2-point disadvantage.
Yeah, and just to make sure that that our viewers know that this bar, which is here visible for everyone, for us, is not visible for the players. So,
of course,
that's also FX. That's also FX. Like when you see the bar goes down, you know that oh god, I have a losing position. I did something wrong, and you're starting to worry about that bar. So, but the players don't have this one. And
they don't have the bar, but I think Yifan without the bar too knows that something has gone wrong. Suddenly, the position of white is winning again. The king of black is too weak. She couldn't take either of the pieces because there was going to be a check on b3 if d takes e4, and it was going to lead to checkmate. It's one of the prettiest checkmates when you sacrifice your queen on g8 to deliver that very thematic checkmate. I'm sure many of you know that checkmate. Indeed. Smaller checkmate. It didn't happen, but because it didn't happen, it means that now the bishop had time to come back to g2. Yes, black will take on e5, but it is a pawn up for white with pair of bishops attacking the center. A second pawn will be taken on d5 possibly, or just f5, f6, going for the attack on the king side.
Now we need maybe queen somewhere, queen on d2, just to try to come on g5, and also the rook on e5 is hanging. I really worry of back rank of white's white's position here, because if white is a little bit inaccurate, there might be some checkmates on the first rank.
Indeed, and the bar keeps showing bigger and bigger advantage for white, but in bullet chess, it's not always that simple to find the killer move.
Yeah, bishop takes d5. Capturing with a check is the best options, of course, because you're capturing something and it's check, and you know your opponent's next move. Here we have rook e1. This is the check that you don't.
And Lei Tingjie doesn't even take it. She's like, no, I'm just gonna run my king to h3. It's safe there. And after queen g1 check, the king will hide on g4. There are a few more checks, but you can cover on f4 with the rook if there's rook e4 or queen e4. And this position is now a rook up for white with a discover check coming soon, leading to checkmate. As soon as you stop the checks, of course, white has to first run away with the king.
Yes. So in the first bullet game, we had also the position after so many complications. Then white had an extra rook on the board, and here is this exact situation when white has an extra rook. Still, there are several checks, but seems like white is capable to cover all these checks.
Indeed, after the rook went to d3, it was almost fully sheltered the king. Now rook to d4. Still, there are a few more checks. King to b4, queen e7. Yifan is giving all the checks possible, obviously. But now after king a4, it was the end of the line. There was only one more check left on the board. Lei Tingjie wins her first bullet game. The first one in this phase was won by Yifan. Now Lei Tingjie. And that means, again, that the advantage of Yifan is only 1 point with 16 minutes to go.
That is exactly what we wanted to see, what everybody wanted to see, unless you are a big fan of one of the players, which actually makes sense to support them. But for us, this is exactly what we want to see in every matches here in this tournament.
A very exciting close match. I'm again rooting for the tiebreaker too, because that means more chess for us. But that's obviously from the spectator point of view. The players are here to qualify to the final. Again, what's at stake is this qualification spot to tomorrow's final match against Harika Dronavali. The first prize is $20,000. And only one of these amazingly strong ladies can make it. Unfortunately, this is how the knockout system works. The winner of today's match qualifies to the final. The loser of the match will not be able to fight for the 20K first prize.
Yes, and there is a little detail that these two players are invited players by Chesscom for a reason, as we can see, and they're making it until the finals. And as I remember, Harika Dronavali is the one who qualified for this event.
Indeed, Harika is already in the final. Even her path to the final wasn't clear at all. Katarina Lana was leading during various points of the match, including one game away from the end when Harika managed to win the final bullet game to tie the score and then won in the tiebreaker. But it was an extremely close match. This could be another close match if Lei Tingjie manages to do well again with this kingside initiative against Yifan's king.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we have such a small point difference here, just one lose might change the character at the moment, because we don't have much of the time. We don't have much of the time. And you will not have too much of the chances. Like you can say, okay, maybe I will wait it later, but you can't here. So every point here, every half point here matters for these two players, and they are extremely focused right now.
Very focused. The players after f4, the knight makes it to f4, but there's a trade of rooks on f7. The h3 pawn is going to be a point if you manage to take there with black, but it's guarded by the white queen, so it's not that easy to get through white's defense. And the time is so low. Again, these are the final seconds of the game.
Right, we had here the sacrifice of piece from black for very powerful kingside attack, and here we have every pieces are attacking the king, but they are not too many, right? Wait, what happens if
knight takes? So the rook is hanging on g4, but the queen can take back. Now rook takes f2, more checks, but overall it's two pieces up for Yifan. Lei Tingjie is trying her very best. She wins one of the pieces back, but I think unless she has perpetual check, this game will go in Yifan's favor.
Right, and here she brings the knight on the in the game. Maybe she wants to bring it on h4, g6, and try to checkmate. Black here tries to trade the queens. That actually makes sense because the pawns are so far from each other, knight cannot control them, and black might manage to capture e5 pawn. So that's why white kept the queens on the board, and here we have a resignation.
Yifan wins the game, and now the lead is 2 points again. But we have seen Lei Tingjie making a comeback from a bigger disadvantage. It was 4 points of an advantage for Yifan earlier, and there's still 12 and a half minutes left for this final bullet portion. Can Lei Tingjie upset the odds? Yifan is the favorite in this match, but Lei Tingjie is the more active player and number 3 in the world by Blitz rating.
Yeah, absolutely. And you remember we were talking about the opening choices in the different segments, and here we have Benoni. This is something new. Seems like how Yifan had this weapon prepared for the time control 1+1. She is going c5 and having this very, very strong bishop here. This bishop we sometimes call this bishop monster bishop here.
It is a monster bishop.
It has a name for a reason, right? But it has here the perfect square. You can see 5 d5, perfect knight on c4 as well. Very beautiful bishop also here on this file. But black also has some some kind of play as well. To be honest, I don't like this position for black at the
Yeah,
moment.
I
At the
think it has
moment, I
gone
don't.
wrong. It has gone wrong for Yifan, I believe, because the white structure in the center is scary. Such powerful central pawns. So this is not an ideal position from the Benoni. Yifan may have gone wrong a couple of moves ago. The current position is favorable for white, and we just need to see whether Lei Tingjie can convert it, because that's of course a question, especially with such low time control. At the same time, I have spotted Miss Jen Shahade in the chat. Jen, hello. She was my co-host yesterday and will be here tomorrow for the final broadcast. Harika Droneval is already in the final, but only one of these two ladies of today fighting, either Huifan or Lei Tingjie, one of them will make it to tomorrow's final clash for the $20,000 first prize.
It's gonna be amazing day, and I will be also joining you girls from the chat and be rooting the best player. Whoever wins, I think deserves to be the winner of the event, because it's not a disease. This tournament is going for weeks already, and it's so many games, so many different time controls, and so many emotions. So all of them really deserves to be here, and well, they also deserve the good money that they're going to win.
$58,000 is the prize fund of the Women's Speed Chess Championship hosted by chess.com and FIDE. A huge shout out, obviously, to both organizations for putting such a strong event together. Hui Fan is on her way to qualify to the final, but in this game, she's not doing well. So it may be the case that Lei Tingjie can still make a comeback. Let's see if she can convert this. The bar is obviously showing a huge advantage for white, but there's not much time to think and consider where's the killer move, where's the win.
Yeah, exactly. She's making some threats here, and what
Whoa!
happened? What happened?
A bit of a dance, and now black is apparently doing better. All right, these things happen. Now white is winning again. This is bullet chess, so these things are very normal. The king is making it to c2 to hide from the checks of black. The black king cannot hide, it seems.
This king reminds me goalkeepers who are getting into the field at the last moment when they need the every players in the game to score. This king was such a hero here on the board and survived so far.
Hero indeed. It's a rook off for Tingjie, but now the overall match timer counts as well. So as much as it is a losing position for black, I think Yifan will keep this game going for longer because of the overall timer. That's part of the strategy. We see every match the player that's leading obviously wants to have it run for a little longer, to have less games remaining. But now with this win, Lei Tingjie is getting closer to tying the score. The lead is only 1 point. Yifan used to lead with 4 points. Will this be a turnaround of events? 8 minutes left.
We're gonna say this in 8 minutes exactly, but from the chess player perspective, like when I had some advantage, some point advantage, and then reduce it to 2 points or 1 point, I feel really bad with that, and I'm thinking like, oh God, I had such a good situation, and it happens. We're all humans, and you might think it during even the running game. And this might affect as well, like it's not easy time here for How You Fun. It's not something that she plans for today, for sure.
Obviously, she's trying to play her best chess, but in such a fast-paced time control bullet chess. We did say Lei Tingjie had the better time management during the match, so in bullet, time is even more of a factor, and she's the more active player. She's still competing actively, trains actively, while for Hu Yifan, she now has a full-time job at the university. Shout out to Chessweave as well. I've just spotted that fellow chess streamer. Chessweave is with us, and he's asking if there will be a tiebreaker. Yes, Danesh, that's a great question. If this match is tied after the last bullet game, there will be a mini match of 4 bullet games as a tiebreaker. And if that's tied, there will be a tiebreaker of the tiebreaker and even Armageddon. So it can go down the wire with all sorts of tiebreak systems, but there will be more games for us to spectate, and that is great.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would not be sad if something like this happens today. I would be happy to see it. And yeah, it clearly we're going that direction. Actually, we're just going in that direction because we cannot predict here. We cannot be sure of the result here. Anything might happen even at the last moment, and it will be the crucial for any of these players.
Very true, Katie. In this game, I think Yifan is doing well, but it's a slight advantage with not much time on the clock. And just when I said it, did I jinx it? Did she miss this tactical pattern that now, after taking twice on f2, the d3 rook is hanging? So White has unfortunately stepped into this tactical pattern, and now Black is in the driver's seat.
Absolutely. Look at this active queen on e4, pinning the knight. Now maybe black should bring the knight somehow into the game. She's keeping the queens on the board. She knows that white king is weaker than her black king, so that's why she's keeping the. What is
Ding Jie with the pawn up blunders the knight. G4 trapped the knight on h5, so there was no way out of the situation. Now Yifan is winning again. Whew, that was unfortunately for Ting Jie a very unfortunate mistake, forgetting about the knight on h5, not having where to return.
Yeah, she was so focused not to trade the queens that she just forgot about this queen d2, which controlled f4 square. And knight was such a outplaced in the corner. That was a good example why we should not bring the knights in the corner.
True. It was a great knight earlier on f4, but on h5, it had no place to go. Now it's mate in 11, according to the evaluation board. But whether Yifan sees it or not, this pawn is promoting 2, and it's a piece up for her. So now after queen f7 check and knight takes g6, I think we will see a resignation from Lei Tingjie. It is a 2-point lead now for Yifan, but what a game this was. It could have gone either way. Lei Tingjie had the upper hand just before blundering g4. 2-point lead for Yifan with 4 minutes to go, 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, we can speculate like 2 more games, including this one. So 1 more game including.
Then it's a must-win situation for Lei Tingjie in both of these last games to tie the score. Can she do it?
Yeah, but what's a strange pawn structure here? I've not seen such a pawn structure, to be honest here.
Yeah.
Sicilian.
The little zigzag there, usually that f pawn is on f4.
Yeah, it's sort of castle here. Maybe she wanted to play f4 and... No. Okay, maybe she wanted to play f4. It was stopped on f3. Sometimes this happens in online chess. But look at these pawns here. Very beautiful pawns. They look really scary.
They do look scary, and at the same time, Black is doing well too, I believe, with such active minor pieces. Let's see if there's a follow-up here for Yifan. She was putting a lot of pressure on this e4 central pawn. Can she continue increasing the pressure, or is it about time to bring the rooks into the game? She can also try to expand further with a5, a4 on the queen side. e5 is a thematical move. You always need to find, obviously, the right moment to push in the center.
And then she captures the knight because this knight was hanging.
Yeah, so it may not have been the best moment to push because it did lose the pawn for her. It is unfortunate. But after bishop takes g7, knight e6, Lei Tingjie has stepped into the knight fork and is losing a piece.
No, but you see how Yifan is doing? She's sacrificing pawns, which is it's just like she's a pawn down, but she has these little tricks prepared for it.
Very dynamic play, yeah. Yifan is going for very brave, bold moves. It doesn't always pay off, but she has played really fighting and inspiring chess when it comes to not fearing being material down. It's true, Ketty, that she did this in many games, going up a pawn or two, just giving it up for activity.
I may lose, but never giving in myself.
Oh yeah, I like material too much, free stuff.
We're not giving, we're taking free stuff.
Wow, this game, if Yifan wins, I'm afraid for Lei Tingjie, there will not be enough time to make a comeback. It depended, I think, on the previous game where Lei Tingjie had the upper hand but blundered her knight. The knight was trapped on h5, and now with a 3-point lead and only a minute and a half left, I think it's almost safe to say that we have a winner. But what a match this has been, and this final game will be a treat. A Berlin endgame we have seen as the theme of the day for many of the early Blitz games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mastered in this opening. I can start to play E4 or E5.
Yeah.
Just watching these matches, I learned so much already.
It has been such an exciting match, and even this penultimate game, the bullet game, where Le Tingjier had a really nice advantage, and if it wasn't for missing g4 that won her knight on h5, I think she had a good chance to win that game. If she had won that game, she was gonna tie the score. So it's crazy how that one game decided the fate of the match in this final bullet phase. Even if the result is now pretty much guaranteed with 40 seconds to go, do not go anywhere, because we will have the players joining us after this final bullet game. We will have both of these amazingly strong ladies joining us for an interview.
Yes, and we want to hear from them, and we have so many things to ask them. But look at this: if Hao Yifan doesn't make any move, the actual time of the segment will run faster than her time.
So I think she's still trying. It has been such an exciting match, and Yifan going for it. It didn't matter whether she's leading or not in the match. She always went for those pawn sacrifices, dynamic chess. We love to see how much both of these ladies were trying their very best to play just a very exciting match of chess, blitz chess and bullet.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They both know the result, but still they're keeping it going. I don't know. I really wanted to see some more of their games, because
we almost got it. We almost got it.
Yes, as we mentioned earlier, this is the first time they ever played chess game against each other. So it was really, really nice to see these amazing players facing each other and competing each other. So here we have the final result, and the winner of the match is Hao Yifan.
We will have the players joining us shortly. Well, what an exciting day this has been. Le Tingjier having chances in the bullet phase, even at the very end. That penultimate game just before Yifan won the next game was, I believe, a key turning point. We will talk to the players in a moment, so don't go anywhere. We're going to take a short break to bring in the players and ask them about how they felt about this match. And we are being joined by the heroes of this match, Yifan and Tingjie. Thank you so much for joining our show. What a match this has been. It came down the wire. We thought there may be a tiebreaker. Congratulations to Yifan. And let me ask the first question to Tingjie, because it felt like in the bullet portion, you almost tied the score. How did it feel from the inside, and where do you think it went wrong in this final phase of the match?
Actually, this match was very tough because, my opponents are very strong. And I didn't do well in 5+1. And okay, 5+1 is almost my problem. Then after 5+1, and I catch up a little bit in 3+1. In bullets, I think I made a lot of mistakes. So yeah, and congratulations to my opponents.
How did you feel about the match, Yifan, when looking at those games and the bullet phase, or would you highlight any other part of the match in particular?
Well, as Tingjie said, actually, it's a tough match, I guess, for both of the players, as most of the times the score were kind of like a tie. I mean, I got some advantage after 5+1, but I think Tingjie had a very fight back in 3+1, especially. I think at some moments I lost 3 games or 4 games in a row. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, and in bullet chess, I also felt like, I mean, there are definitely mistakes, I believe, especially when the clock goes down to the seconds. But in general, I felt like the quality of this bullet match somehow was better than my previous matches, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, I also thought the score was mainly very close, and I thought the turning point like I think I won this game with white, like the ultimate round, something like that. No, 3 rounds before the final one, where I had a pawn down. So I guess that's probably kind of the turning point. But it's like a blitz chess, especially bullet. So that's that's hard to predict anything, right?
And lately, did you had some special preparation for this match or this tournament? Because here we have 3 different segments, 3 different time control small segments. And did you had something special that you were working for it?
No, so because I just play my normal chess, I didn't prepare for some special. I think play the normal chess is the best way to play some bullet and bullet, because you just play your favorite and you have a good understanding, then you can play good.
Yifan, same question to you, if you can reflect on the preparation as well. Obviously, you're making it to the final against Harika Jornavali, so we don't ask for any secret information, but anything that you can reveal about your preparation for today.
Well, to be honest, there's no secret for me at all. So I'm happy to discuss. Yeah, I mean, I think the only preparation I did is trying to ensure that the connection was kind of stable, and this is thanks to Igniter that allowed me to have only one camera running on the time and the other at the backup at the local place. So I guess that's the only thing I was trying to figure out technically. And chess-wise, really nothing special. Yeah, and I think I played really this several speed chess events before, so yeah, I feel like it's just a process of let's say enjoyment. So that's a very good experience in general.
And Yifan, we are dying to know. Myself, I'm sure Anna too, and our chat too. We know that you're working at the university, and we're dying to know what is your positions there and what is your job like.
Well, so that was unexpected, to be honest. No worries. So I'm working as a professor there, so in PE department. And coincidentally, we just had our final exam period. I mean, my class is finished like about a week ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago, and so now we're finalizing all these scores and concluding the past term or terms, because this is also like a 1 academic year in China. So there are all these lectures, like teaching stuff, and also the projects going on, and also there's some administrative works. So that's how things looks like in general.
We hope that you will keep going very well in your academic career, but also obviously many of the viewers are rooting for you to make a comeback at competitive chess too, maybe over the board as well when the world opens up. And Tingjie, you are a very active player. Do you have any future plans, upcoming events that you can tell the viewers about?
Upcoming events?
Will you participate in any tournaments or do you have mainly training planned for the upcoming months?
Okay, I think I don't have enough tournaments to play, just like online tournaments. I just training and nothing special. I'm just waiting for the tournament. So yeah, I'm just be a professional chess player right now.
Can I ask you as an additional question, since you've just played against Yifan, how much of a motivation is it for you that you have Yifan as a 4-time women's world champion? Does that motivate you even more to work hard and also achieve that title?
It's hard to say now. And I think we just played 2 games before. I don't know how can we just play 2 games before. And right now she is coaching me as well because we have junior spar challenger events and we have some progress like okay, she's also my coach, so I learned a lot from her lessons, and so I don't know, I just try to play well, and in the future, yeah, we'll see.
I didn't know that you two are working together. That is very wholesome, and we wish the best for both of you in the training sessions as well as future competitions. Katie, any final words about the match to the players? Yifan, from my side, I just want to wish you the best of luck for tomorrow, obviously.
Thank you.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Thank you so much for this fight and for the spirit that you showed to us and for all these beautiful combinations. Thank you so much.
Thanks to both of you and best of luck tomorrow, Yifan.
Thank you. Bye.
That has been such a wholesome match, very exciting match. And at the same time, we just learned that Tingjie is working with Yifan as some of the training sessions are hosted by Yifan herself. It's amazing to know how the 4-time women's world champion is now helping the next generation of players. Obviously, we are rooting for Yifan to come back to competitive chess over the board tournaments as well. But for now, she's in the final of our online women's chess championship, facing tomorrow Harika Dronavalli. Katie, your thoughts on this final clash for the $20,000 first prize?
Oh my God, I can't wait to see that, Anna. I will be here and rooting for both of them, of course.
Obviously, the time will be confirmed as soon as our team can talk to Yifan. We needed to wait to know who is going to win today's match. It's most likely will be a similar starting time as today or even a bit earlier. So stay tuned for the announcement. You can always see the schedule on Chess TV. I think for now, it is scheduled for about 4:30 or 4 a.m. Pacific, but you will be able to see the exact starting time on Chess TV. And if you hit the follow button, that heart, it's free to click on it. You'll be notified when we go live with tomorrow's final. Katie, it has been a pleasure hosting today's broadcast with you. It was the first time we did a coverage together, even though we have known each other for so long.
Yeah, that's true. And I loved it, Anna. I really loved it. And I had such a joy here. And players provided it on the chessboard. So it was great time to be here with you. And hope that we will be working some other projects too.
I hope so too. Tomorrow, Jen will join me for the final broadcast, but I hope that we get a chance to host future events together in the future. And huge shout out to our viewers, obviously, on Twitch and on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in to the semifinals, and see you all tomorrow for the final clash, Harika Dronavalli versus Yifan.
Bye.